What if the hero was accused as a traitor? Punished.
Hello everyone, welcome to What If Belle Accused as Traitor Got Punished and Became Blind Hero movie. Before we start, please go support Shadow Cranel Kun for writing that awesome fanfic. This is the translated version I made. There will be some mistaken character's gender, but of course Belle is a male. Betrayal is a very powerful action and feeling, isn't it? Well, sometimes, even though it's hard to believe, incredible things come out of it. But that doesn't mean forgiveness will ever come to the person who betrayed you. Nothing, absolutely nothing in this world can make you forget something so painful, especially if it came from the people you loved the most. What you can do is move on and face the pain, but that sad memory will always be with you. However, for young Bell Cranel, he will have to return to the place where all that happened to be for the last time the hero of someone who needs it. Chapter 1. The Meeting. Of. Well, you might be wondering who I am. Well, my name is Cecilia and I'm a rookie adventurer and I'm 15 years old. And I am from the family of the god Danmachi. You will wonder why. Well, he was looking for adventurers who were missing families and I joined him, you will wonder, but he did not owe money to another god. Really, yes, but not anymore, since that god died. He was killed by one of Ares' soldiers, like almost half of the families and people of Orario. You will wonder how it all happened. Well, it all started after a new adventurer from the outskirts of Orario arrived and joined the Hestia family. It is said that this new adventurer discovered that the leader of the Hestia family was a spy for Ares. The Hestia family, like Loki's family, attacked the poor captain, hurting him and banishing him from Orario. Months passed and magical weapons like those of the Hestia and Loki families were stolen. But not only that, also a key that is said to be the key that is used to release colossal, destructive and dangerous beasts. It was because of the novice adventurer who framed the captain and thus started a great war in Orario. Many people died, adventurers, gods, etc., among them my parents. It is said that the family of the goddess Hestia, Loki and Freya, even the guild, has been looking for the adventurer. I do not know who he is, but it is said that his nickname is Rabbitfoot. Even a reward of 10 billion valis has been given to find him and bring him, but nothing. Many adventurers have gone to look for him, but they never found him. A year and a half has passed since everything happened. Normal POV. We can see on the outskirts of Orario in the distance two adventurers in a carriage carrying a tied-up girl with a rag tied over her mouth to prevent her from screaming. Cecilia. AVN1. Well, we have the merchandise. How long until it arrives? AVN2. Still 2 hours left. AVN1. TSK, how boring. Looks at the girl. I think I'll try the merchandise. What do you say? AVN2. TSK, do what you want. While one of the adventurers was driving the carriage, the other entered with the girl. This managed to move the cloth that was preventing her from screaming a little. Cecilia. Let me go, you damn bastards. AVN1. Haha, come here, beautiful. Cecilia. Don't go away. While ahead with the adventurer who was driving. AVN2. I hope no one hurt us, he said, looking at the night sky. But at that moment he saw something in the sky that began to descend. AVN2. What the heck? While inside the carriage. AVN1. Come on, darling, I just want to have a little fun, he said, approaching the girl. Cecilia. Don't go away, she kicked the adventurer in the crotch. He fell to his knees as he clutched his crotch in pain. AVN1. Ah, damn bitch. He grabbed the girl's hair and pulled her closer, giving her something to drink. AVN1. With this you will stop resisting. Cecilia. Cough cough, what did you give me? She was starting to lose consciousness. AVN1. Now the fun part begins, he said as he approached. But he was interrupted by a piercing scream from his companion and the carriage stopped. AVN1. Ah, hey, what the hell is happening to you that you don't know how to drive? The adventurer was in shock as what he saw in front of him was a giant eye the size of a head floating. He moved his gaze slightly to the left and looked at the lifeless body of his companion. He saw the giant eye again and it had a horizontal cut and opening, showing a row of teeth. The adventurer didn't know what to do, so when he tried to go back in, the eye pounced on him, grabbing his head. AVN1. Ah. Get off it. Someone take it from me. The eye bit off his head, while the girl, who was silent watching how the eye had bitten off the adventurer's head, wanted to move away, but moved a bottle that made a noise, attracting the eye's attention. It looked at her, opening its mouth to bite her. The girl only thought one thing. Cecilia, so this is how I will die, devoured by a giant eye. Sorry mom, sorry dad, for letting you down, sorry little brother for not being able to rescue you, she thought while crying. The girl just closed her eyes waiting to be bitten. A while passed and she heard something fleshy fall to the floor. She opened her eyes and looked at the giant eye split in half on the floor. She looked up and saw a silhouette. Are you okay? It was the only thing I heard before fainting. The girl had woken up in what looked like a room in a cabin. She looked around and looked at herself, and she had other clothes on, she wasn't wearing her adventurer clothes. She began to hear footsteps and heard someone start knocking on the door. Knock knock knock. Those special effects are 100% real, not fake V. The person spoke through the door. Hey, I know you're awake, so come down for breakfast. I heard the person walk away and start walking down some stairs. Cecilia was surprised and got up from the bed and started walking towards the door, but not before taking something to defend herself. She grabbed what appeared to be a stick. She opened the door, looked out to see if he was hiding and started walking down some stairs, arriving at the dining room and saw someone who was washing dishes. Hey, there's no need for you to carry that, I'm not going to hurt you, he said without turning to look at her. But Cecilia only gripped the stick tighter. Oh no, forget it, your breakfast is on the table. He just sat at the table and looked at the plate of food and then at the person. Don't worry, there's nothing wrong with it, you can eat with peace of mind. The girl first smelled the food to check that it didn't smell strange and proceeded to eat it, but she didn't let go of the stick and kept looking at the person. And tell me who you are. Cecilia. Well, if you don't want to, there's no need to tell me if you don't trust me. Cecilia. I am Cecilia, now tell me who you are, she said seriously. I'm just a simple farmer. Well, tell me, Cecilia, tell me where you come from. Cecilia. I come from Orario. Orario, you know it's a 3-hour carriage ride from here, right? Tell me what you're doing away from home. Cecilia. I was on a mission to find someone. Have I, and what kind of person are you looking for? Cecilia. To an adventurer. You will find many good adventurers even in Orario, but what kind of adventurer are you looking for? Cecilia. I'm looking for Rabbitfoot. The person stopped washing the dishes and asked. Because you are looking for a traitor, he said seriously. Cecilia. He is not a traitor, whisper. What did you say? Cecilia. He is not a traitor, she said seriously. And how can you know that? Yes, I heard he was a spy that Ares had sent to Orario. Cecilia. Of course not, he is innocent, he was unjustly accused of being a spy, said sadly. Well, if you say so, and tell me why you are looking for it. Cecilia. Because I need your help. Your help for what? He said doubtfully. Cecilia. I need him to help me save my little brother. Some damn adventurers from the Soma family took him to the 18th floor and I can't go because I'm level 1, said sadly, but I heard that Rabbitfoot is level 3 and I think he would help me. And what makes you think he will help you? Cecilia. Because I know he's a hero. A hero, ha 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 ha. Cecilia. That's so funny, she said angrily. How can you consider a traitor a hero? Cecilia remained silent and then looked at him and said. Cecilia. For her heroic deeds. Heroic deeds? He said confused. Cecilia. Yes, I heard that he saved his goddess and fought a silverback, how he forgave a support who betrayed him, how he defeated a minotaur alone being level 1, he even saved the small town on the 18th floor from the attack of the Black Goliath, he even saved a prostitute who was going to be sacrificed for that reason, he is a hero. The person just stayed silent and then spoke. That was just an adventure, girl, he's no hero, said sadly. The girl wanted to continue talking, but he interrupted her. Your things are up next to the bed, go get them. The girl didn't say anything, she just finished her breakfast and went to her room to get her things. Hero, he said sadly, remembering. Flashback. Kami-sama, I promise you that I will work hard to get a better house. Because that's what heroes do. Because I will be your hero, Harihum. Then flashback. I was never considered a hero, just a traitor, said sadly. Flashback. Aina. Get that traitor out of here. Angrily shouts. Ryu. Get out of here, traitor, she looked at him seriously and angrily while threatening him with a wooden sword. Harihum. You are not a hero, you are just a traitor, he said while crying. Pestia. You are no longer part of this family, traitor, she said angrily at the entrance of the mansion. Baze. How could I fall in love with trash like you, dirty traitor? End flashback. Sigh, traitor. While with Cecilia, she had changed her clothes, putting on her adventurer clothes, and could see in the corner of the room a silver armor with red stripes, but apparently it was damaged and rusty. She only asked herself one question, was that armor his, and also if he changed it, since she remembered that she was wearing other clothes that were not hers. She blushed at the thought that someone who does not know her had touched her and seen her body. So she took her things and went down and proceeded to ask him. Cecilia. Why you see changed my clothes, she said, blushing while playing with her fingers. Yes, he said without taking it seriously. Cecilia. Why you me? Don't worry. Cecilia. Hey. She said confused. I can't see anything anyway. He came out of the kitchen where he was washing the dishes, revealing someone with snow-white hair, but where his eyes were was covered by a black bandage. This surprised the girl and she asked. Cecilia. You're blind. It wasn't before. Cecilia. So how did you lose your sight? It was in an accident. Cecilia wanted to ask how she lost her sight until she heard someone arrive. "I'm here," he said happily, "now I see that you're already awake." "Well Yui, since you're here I'll leave you with her, I have things to do," he said while heading to the door. "By the way, don't bother her." "Yui. Don't worry, I won't. Or I almost forgot, Cecilia, in 2 hours a carriage will head towards Orario." "Cecilia. Yeah." Cecilia looked at that boy with shock, even though this blind man had no problems with doors, chairs, etc. Yui approached the girl and spoke to her. "Yui. Hello, tell me your name." "Cecilia. My name is Cecilia, and you?" "Yui. I'm Yui," said bowing. "Tell me, Cecilia, how do you feel?" "Cecilia. Hey. Fine," she said while looking out the window, and you could see the boy who was harvesting the crops. Yui noticed this and asked him. "Yui. I see you've already met him, don't worry, he's that serious," she said happily. Cecilia. "Not only who is he?" she said without stopping looking at the boy. "Yui. He is a level 3 adventurer, or he was before. When he lost his sight he stopped being one." Cecilia. How she lost her sight? Yui. I don't know, he never told me. Yui. Come with me to show you the village. Time skip 2 hours. Well girl, your carriage is ready. Cecilia. Yes, she said to go to the carriage without asking first. Cecilia. Hey, getting the boy's attention, tell me who you really are. I already told you I'm just a simple farmer. Although he received a small blow to the side from a slightly angry Yui. Sigh Bell Cranel. So the girl's carriage began to leave. Belle and Yui were left alone in silence until Yui spoke. Yui. You're not going with her, she said looking at Belle. Belle. Why would I do that? Yui. Belle, she's been looking for you for a year, she needs your help. Belle. Hestia and Loki's family is not in Orario, they should help her. Yui just sighed. Belle. I also feel like that girl will only bring me problems. Well, with Cecilia in the carriage. Cecilia. Bell Cranel, who are you really? Chapter 2. The return. Of. Cecilia had returned from the village to Orario. After arriving she headed towards the guild. Cecilia. Ina said arriving looking for her but didn't find her. He approached one of the receptionists at the place to ask. Cecilia. Excuse me, I've seen Ina. Hey? Or it's you if you look for her, she's not there, it's her day off. Cecilia. I see. But she goes to the fertility bar, you'll find her there. Cecilia. Well, thank you, she said, bowing and leaving the place. It looks like that rabbit, he said while watching him walk away. Cecilia left the guild and went to the fertility bar looking for Ina. She saw her at the entrance of the bar, apparently she had just arrived, so she shouted at her, getting her attention. Cecilia. Ina. She screamed as she ran towards her. Ina. Hey. Oh Cecilia, hello, she said happily. Ina, seeing how Cecilia was addressing her, reminded her of a rabbit that she turned her back on and didn't help, remembering that some nights she cried in her bed knowing what she did. Cecilia had arrived with Ina. Cecilia. Ina, I need you to give me information about someone. Ina. Hey, sure, just let's go in first. Cecilia. Yes. Ina. This way. Upon arrival they sat at a table and Ina proceeded to ask. Ina. And tell me, Cecilia, who is the lucky one, she said playfully. Cecilia. Hey, blushes, no, it's nothing like that, I just want to know about someone. Ina. Well, tell me who it is, she said curiously. Cecilia. What kind of adventurer was Bell Cranel? The atmosphere changed from one of joy to one of sadness. Ina had become sad because of the question when she remembered the rabbit. Ina. Bell, he was someone kind and good, someone who dreamed of becoming a hero until he said sadly, Cecilia noticed, until one day he left, but why do you ask? Cecilia. No, I just had doubts about who he was. Both remained silent. Cecilia. And tell me what Bell Cranel's nickname was. Ina. Her first nickname was Little Rocky, then her second nickname was Rabbitfoot. Cecilia was surprised, as she did not expect Bell Cranel, that blind boy, to be Rabbitfoot, so she asked. Cecilia. Am Ina? Ina. Yes, Cecilia. Cecilia. Do you know how Bell lost his sight? Ina. Losing his sight? No, I never knew that he had lost his sight, she said curiously and asked, but why do you ask that? Did you find Bell? She said with a look of hope. Cecilia. No, I've only heard rumors about a boy with white hair and a blindfold covering his eyes. Ina's hope was gone after hearing that it was just a rumor. Ina. Sighs, just ignore those rumors, they are always false, said sadly. Cecilia saw that Ina was sad, so she chose not to continue with the subject and said goodbye and left the bar. Cecilia went to the man from the carriage that brought her and asked him if he could take her back to the village. So she returned to the village looking for the rabbit, but she didn't find it, but she did find Yui. Cecilia. Yui. Yui. Cecilia, are you back? Although Cecilia ignored Yui's question. Cecilia. Yui, where is Belle? Yui. Belle, well, he's fishing, but why are you looking for him? She said confused. Cecilia. I need to talk to him. Yui guided Cecilia to what looked like a small lake and they could see the rabbit fishing. Yui. Okay, there's Belle, I'm leaving, I have things to do, she said bowing. Cecilia. Yes, thank you Yui, she said bowing. So Yui left the place leaving Cecilia alone with Belle. Cecilia approached slowly until. Belle. I thought you had already left here, he said without turning around. Cecilia. It was always you, the adventurer Rabbitfoot. Belle. I'm not an adventurer anymore, just a simple farmer. Cecilia. Come on, you're the person I've been looking for a year and it turns out you don't want to help me. Belle. Because I would help you, I can't see and if I can't see I can't help you with whatever it is. Cecilia. Of course you can. Yui told me that the person who saved me was you and a hero always helps those who need it. Belle had gotten up from his place picking up a bucket full of fish and stood in front of Cecilia. Belle. Look, I'm not a hero and I never was, so leave me alone. He said seriously as he tried to pass by the girl and continue on his way, but he stopped. Cecilia. Whisper. Belle. What are you saying? Cecilia. But you were my father's hero. Belle. Girl. But he was interrupted by Cecilia. Cecilia. You saved him. Belle remained silent on the 5th floor. He told me how he was going to be killed by a minotaur, but you arrived and threw a stone at him, drawing his attention so my dad could escape, even as you saved him before being crushed by the Black Goliath. For that reason you are a hero, you always save people, just for that reason, don't say you are not a hero. Belle just remained silent and then said. Belle. Girl, just because I saved your father doesn't mean I'm a hero, he said seriously. Cecilia. But. It was interrupted. Belle. Also, I did what any adventurer would have done. Save him. Turns to the girl's direction. Look at reality, girl. The hero you're looking for doesn't exist. Cecilia remained silent and was upset and would be. Cecilia. Fine, thanks for nothing. Belle ran past Belle. Belle just sighed heavily and continued on his way and arrived at the cabin and put the bucket full of fish on the table, but at that moment he was hugged by someone. Belle. What are you doing? He asked confused. Yui. I'm hugging you, it doesn't seem like it, she said playfully. They remained silent as she continued to hug him from behind. Yui. Belle, why don't you want to help her? Belle. It's because. But he was interrupted by Yui who was a little annoyed. Yui. And if you say that because you are blind I won't believe you, she said a little annoyed. Belle remained silent. Yui. I know you don't want to help her just because you'll have to return to Orario and I respect your decision, but she needs you. Belle. But. He was interrupted by Yui. Yui. I know Belle, but she doesn't trust them. I know what they did to you in Orario, but don't let those memories prevent you from helping the girl. Belle remained silent thinking until he received a kiss on his right cheek from Yui who started to go up the stairs without saying anything. Yui. Besides, I know you Belle, you always help people in need or in trouble. Rest Belle, she said to go up the stairs and head to her room. Belle just sighed and raised his head and said. Belle. Because I feel like I'm going to regret this, he said leaving the bucket and going up the stairs. Belle went up and entered his room where he went to the corner and grabbed the box that had his old armor. He also took out another smaller one from under his bed. He left the cabin and went to a cabin further away from the village and knocked on the door. Knock knock knock. V. A dwarf with a long beard and straight brown hair had come out of the house and spoke. Oh Belle, what brings you here at this time of night? Belle. I'm so sorry to bother you at this hour Mats, I just came to ask you a favor. Mats, don't worry Belle, and tell me what this favor is about. Belle. Well, he had put the box in front of the dwarf and opened it showing him his old armor. I wanted to ask you if you could fix my old armor. The dwarf had grabbed a piece of the armor and was examining it. Mats, why do you want me to fix this armor? Are you going to go adventuring again? Belle. Let's say I'm thinking of helping someone and I need armor, you can fix it. Mats, yes I can, but I'll need materials. Belle. I also brought this, he said putting another box that had one red ingot. Mats, adamantite whisper in surprise. Belle. That's enough. Mats, hey, just he said grabbing an adamantite ingot, where did you get them from? Belle. It's a secret. Mats, hey, you and your secrets, well, in a few hours I'll have your armor. Belle. Fine, thanks Mats. Mats, you're welcome Belle. Belle retreated and Mats came in to repair Belle's armor. The next morning. Cecilia had gotten into the carriage waiting for it to begin its return to Orario, although she was sad for not being able to get Belle's help, or so she thought, when she realized she saw someone hooded enter the carriage, she didn't know what to do or say until. Belle. Okay girl, tell me, what do you want me to help you with? He said taking off his hood, showing his identity. Cecilia didn't know what to say, she was surprised. Cecilia. I thought that. She was interrupted by Belle, who raised his hand in front of her. Belle. I'll just help you and leave. Understood, now tell me what it was. Cecilia proceeded to tell him about her brother, how he was kidnapped by children of the Soma family, and how they demanded a reward for his rescue, and that they took him to the 18th floor. Belle was just silent. Skip 3 hours. Belle and Cecilia had arrived at Orario. Cecilia was the first to get off, then it was Belle who took a deep breath and said. Belle. I'm back, said seriously. Belle headed in the direction of Cecilia. Belle. Well, now I have to find a place to stay. Cecilia. You can't stay with us. Belle. Tell me, Cecilia, who is your god or goddess? Cecilia. It's Maich-sama. Belle didn't trust him, God Maich, not because he betrayed him, but because he could tell Hestia that Belle had returned to Orario. Belle. No thanks, I'd rather find a place to stay and not be a bother. Cecilia. Hey, well, let's find a place for you to stay, she said happily. Belle just nodded. Belle and Cecilia were walking through the streets of Orario, although Belle was hooded to hide his identity, until he felt that someone was watching him, and if it was the same person who had watched him since he had arrived in the beginning, Belle only thought. Belle. Well, and this is where the problems start, thought seriously. While at the Tower of Babel moments before. The goddess Freya could be seen lying on a couch looking at what looked like a crystal ball, but she seemed to be bored. Freya. Boring, said, changing the scenery that could be seen in the crystal ball. Boring, 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 sigh, there is no one interesting here. He said as he kept changing the scenarios until. Freya. Impossible, she said, surprised. What Freya had seen was the very soul of a boy she hadn't seen for a year and a half. Freya. Her soul shines brighter than before, she said with a happy smile and excited. Freya. I'm glad you're back, Bunny, she said as she stood up from the sofa and headed towards the crystal ball, because this time you'll be mine, Otter. Otter. Yes, Freya-sama. Freya. Tell Alan I have an important task for him. Otter. Yes, Freya-sama said, leaving the room, leaving the goddess alone. Freya. Wow, your soul is so white and so bright, even more than before, so much so that it asks for someone to desecrate it, and that someone will be me, she said, looking at the crystal ball, and with a malicious smile. Back on the streets of Orario. Belle and Cecilia were still looking for a place where Belle will stay after Belle and Cecilia arrived at an alley. Belle. Hey, if you want, go home. If you haven't seen your god for 2 days, he must be worried about you, you know. Cecilia. What? But we still haven't found a place for you, she said in surprise. But she was interrupted by Belle. Belle. Don't worry, I can do it alone, now go, he said in a relaxed manner. Cecilia just nodded and walked away. Belle shouted. Belle. By the way, I'll see you tomorrow in front of the guild. Cecilia. Hey. Yes. Screams before leaving. Belle just stayed silent until the speaker left. Belle. You can go out, he said seriously. From one of the roofs, Alan, one of Freya's sons, came out under the roofs to the alley a few meters behind Belle. Belle. I can help you with something, he said without turning around. Alan. Freya-sama wants to see you, trash, he said seriously and a little annoyed. Belle said nothing and started walking slowly. Alan. You didn't hear, garbage, Freya-sama wants to see you. Belle. Stop, yes I heard, but I'm not going. Alan. Then I'll have to take you by force, you damn piece of trash, she said annoyed. Belle started laughing and turned towards the semi-cat. Belle. Ha 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 ha, I want to see you try it. Alan, already angry, jumped towards Belle to hit him. Belle didn't even move, just waited. Chapter 3. Memories and unexpected things. Alan, already angry, jumped in the direction of Belle to hit him. Belle did not even move, just waited. When Alan was going to insert the blow in the face of Belle, he dodged it, giving him a kick behind the knee, forcing him to kneel down, took his head and gave him a knee in the jaw, making him get up and take a few steps back. Taking advantage of the fact that the semi-cat was stunned, Belle unsheathed his katana and, using the opposite side of the edge, hit him again in the jaw, making him take a few more steps back. Alan. Damn trash, you think that's all I. It didn't end as he fell on his back unconscious. Belle just stood there and put away his katana, turned around and walked away, leaving an unconscious Alan lying on the floor. As Belle left the alley and walked through the streets of Orario, he remembered what his master told him. Flashback. The Belle with a black bandage covering his eyes could be seen on the floor, tired, and he was complaining. Belle. If only I weren't weak, if only I had a Falna, he said furiously with himself. And what does a Falna have to do with your training, said a dark-skinned man who apparently is an Amazon, who had an afro and a bandage tied on his forehead that said number 1. Belle. If I had at least one Falna, I would have my levels and I wouldn't have so many weaknesses, and I would be strong. The man remained silent, thinking, and then spoke. No matter what level you were, even with a Falna you would have weaknesses. Belle. But it would be stronger. Of course not, Belle. Belle said confused. Belle, you think that levels determine a person and their strength, but let me tell you that no matter what level you are, you would still have a weakness. Belle just stayed silent. Let me tell you, Belle, that the levels are only there to give a little help, but you don't get strong, and you are not weak either, even without Falna you could beat someone who does have. Belle? How? I asked doubtfully. As I told you, Belle, even if you have a flaw, you have a weakness, even the strongest, you just have to find it. Belle remained thoughtful. Well, let's continue with your training. Belle. Yes, he had gotten up from the floor and then asked, Master, you have weaknesses. So why don't you come and find out, he said, putting himself on guard. Then flashback. Thanks to his teacher he understood that no matter what level he is, he always has a weakness. Belle arrived at a place that apparently was a restaurant and hotel. Belle entered and arrived with the receptionist. Rec. How can I help you? Belle. Hello, I would like to stay here temporarily. Rec. Yes, sir. Belle. Yes. Rec. I need you to show me your face. Belle. Because I asked, confused. Rec. Well, sometimes there are adventurers who leave without paying and we need to know if the person they. But she was interrupted by Belle. Belle. Don't worry, I won't leave without paying, but if you don't trust me anyway, I'll take off my hood. He said, taking off his hood, showing a boy with white hair but with a black bandage covering his eyes. This surprised the receptionist and she couldn't help but ask. Rec. You're said in shock. But she was interrupted by Belle, who was the one who finished the sentence. Belle. Blind, yes, he said, putting his hood back on. Rec. Sorry, I don't. But again she was interrupted. Belle. Don't worry, it's normal to distrust customers. Rec. Anyway, I'm very sorry, here's your key, your room is on the 3rd floor on the 2nd floor. Belle. Thank you, he said, to withdraw and head for the stairs, avoiding colliding with the chairs and tables. The receptionist saw this with surprise, since the boy had no problems where to walk. Belle, upon arriving at his room, entered and took off his hood and his red armor with small white stripes. Author. It is the same armor he uses in the anime, only the white is red and the red stripes are white. Belle took a shower and changed his clothes and threw himself on the bed to rest. That's what he wanted until. Belle's stomach. Ggrrrr. Belle had to put on his armor and also his hood to go down to eat. When he changed, he left the room and went down to sit at a table and ordered something to eat. When his order arrived, he heard some adventurers talking. AVN1. Where is this Bell Cranel hiding? AVN2. You're still looking for it. AVN1. Yes. AVN3. Old man, just give up, you won't find him. AVN1. I won't give up. AVN2. Hey, almost everyone in Orario has been looking for her, but no one has found her. Just forget about it and go to the dungeon. AVN1. Forget it, friends. The Hestia family, Loki and Freya along with the guild, have given a reward of 10 billion to find him and they tell me to give up. Event 2 and 3. Yes. AVN1. I hate you guys. While they continued talking about things, Belle only thought. Belle. Because they have given so much for me that perhaps it was not enough for them to hit me and they want to torture me to death, he thought very angrily, clenching his hand in pure rage until. Flashback. Belle could be seen hitting a training dummy with a wooden sword. Belle. Ah, screams, hitting the mannequin. When I come back I'll be paid for. Belle. Ah, Belle had spoken to his second master, who was an elf with golden hair and blue eyes. Belle. He. Maestro. Belle, what's wrong with you? Belle. Nothing, he said, trying to hide his anger. Don't lie to me, Belle, what did you mean by they'll pay you when you get back? Belle. Loki and Hestia's family will pay me when I return, I will finish them off, he said angrily. Sigh. Belle said with a disapproving look, because you let yourself be guided by hatred and resentment. Belle, revenge is not good, it will only bring you more pain. Belle. More pain in what way? Because of them I am blind, I helped them, and how did they pay me? Hey, tell me how they paid me. Angry scream. The elf just sighed and said. Come here and attack me. Belle. Hey. He said, confused. I said come and attack me, think that I am one of those who betrayed you. Belle did not hesitate and began to attack his master, hitting left and right without mercy, and his master blocked all of Belle's blows and also made Belle stumble, causing him to fall face down on the floor. Again. Belle. Grrrrahhhhhh screams, getting up. But he did the same thing and Belle fell again and again and again. When Belle fell for the 10th time, he didn't get up anymore. His teacher came over and said. Do you feel better now? Belle. No, he said agitatedly. Sigh. Belle, why do you want revenge so much? Belle. Why, when tears started to run from the bandages on his eyes, I did sniff so much, sniff for them, and they sniff repaid me by betraying me and sniff. Belle was interrupted by his teacher's hand stroking his hair. Belle, revenge will not bring you peace if you think that, it never has, it only sows pain, if you continue to hold hatred and resentment, you will only harm yourself. Belle remained silent and said. Belle. So what do I have to do? I asked, wiping away tears. Just forget it, he said simply. Belle. Forget it? He said confused. Yes, if you keep thinking about the past, about what they did to you, you will only hurt yourself, but if you forget it and continue on your path, believe me, life will take a 360-degree turn, and many good things will happen to you, believe me. Belle. And how do you know that good things will happen to me, he said doubtfully. Experience, my student, now let's go eat something, he said, lifting Belle from the floor. He started walking but felt someone take him by the arm. He turned around and saw Belle. Something's wrong, Belle. Belle. Thank you for everything, teacher. You're welcome, Belle said with a sincere smile. Now let's go. Then flashback. Belle. Sigh, just forget it and continue on your way, he said, whispering and relaxing. Belle finished his meal and went to his room to rest. While at the Tower of Babel, the goddess Freya could be seen surprised and amazed because she saw how Belle left a level 7 adventurer. P.S. All adventurers from the Hestia, Loki and Freya family went up a level, unconscious without much effort. Only one thing was going through Freya's mind. Freya. I must have it, 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 thought while panting heavily. But she pulled herself together and said. Freya. Otter. Otter. Yes, Freya-sama. Freya. Go get Alan, I doubt he'll wake up. Otter. Yes, Freya-sama. Otter left his goddess alone. Freya. Oh bunny, why do you refuse to come with me? I would give you all the love you wanted. She said while thinking about unholy things. Freya. Haha laughed as a trickle of blood ran down her nose. Back with Belle. Belle shivered but just ignored it. After a while, he heard someone knocking on his door. He got up and opened the door, finding Cecilia standing there. Belle. How the hell did you find me? This surprised Cecilia, but she also asked. Cecilia. How the hell do you know it's me? She said surprised. Belle. Your perfume, he said simply. Now would you tell me how you found me? Cecilia. Well, I met the king, Otter, and I asked him if he saw someone hooded and he told me you were here, she said simply. Belle. Apparently Freya doesn't know what privacy is, thought annoyed. Belle. And well, what do you need me for? Cecilia. I wanted to ask you if you would like to come with me to eat somewhere. Belle thought for a second and then said. Belle. Yes, why not? Although I recently ate. Cecilia. Well, I know a place nearby that has good food, she said happily. Belle. Okay, give me a few minutes to get ready. He said as he entered the room. After Belle changed, they both went out in the direction of the place Cecilia was talking about. After a while of walking, they were both near the bar. Cecilia. I know you like this place because it has the best food ever, she said happily as she walked next to Belle. Belle. We'll see about that, he said calmly. But before they arrived, Belle stopped. Belle. Don't tell me that smell, he thought, surprised and serious. Cecilia. Well, we arrived at the fertility bar, she said happily as she stood a few meters in front of Belle. Even though he is a bit strange, something is happening. Belle. And no, nothing, he said calmly. Cecilia. Hey, if you don't like it, we can go to another bar. She said, approaching Belle. Belle. It's not okay, don't worry, let's go, he said, starting to walk past Cecilia towards the bar. Cecilia just nodded and started walking behind Belle. Belle upon arriving went to a table and Cecilia sat down with him and ordered their food. When their food arrived, one of the waitresses approached Cecilia. Hello, Cecilia greeted happily. Cecilia. Hello sir, returning the greeting. Sir, and Cecilia started talking about girl stuff while Belle was ignored, although he didn't care about that and didn't want Sir to notice, but it didn't go as planned. Sir. By the way, Cecilia, who is he? He said, pointing with his eyes at Belle, since he was hooded. Cecilia. Oh, Sir is. But she was interrupted by Belle. Belle. Jack, soy Jack. Sir. Nice to meet you, Jack, I'm Sir, she said while extending her hand to greet him. Belle hesitated whether to accept the greeting, but since Cecilia was watching him he had no choice but to accept. Belle, Jack. The pleasure is mine, unfortunately, he thought while accepting the greeting. Sir. Well, I'm leaving. I have to continue with work. See you later, Cecilia. She said goodbye and went to serve customers. Cecilia. Yes, she said while watching Sir leave, then she turned to see Belle and asked why did you lie to her and not say your real name? Belle. Because I don't want them to know it's me. Cecilia. Why? Then she thought of something that surprised her and said, don't tell me that one day you left without paying. Belle. Hey, yeah, let's just say one day I left without paying, he said with a poker face. Cecilia. Well, don't worry, I'll pay today. Belle. It's not okay this time. If I brought money there's no need for you to pay for me. Cecilia. In serio? Belle. Really, don't worry. Belle was calm until he heard some laughter coming from another table, and those laughters belonged to the members of Loki's family. Bet. Hahaha. Fiona. Hahaha really Captain. Hahaha. Finn. Hahaha yes really. Lefia. Hahaha don't you think it's funny Ace? Ace? Yes he said coldly. Lefia. Hahaha. The place stopped being funny to be uncomfortable afterward. Belle noticed that Ace was colder than before but didn't take it seriously and continued eating. Apparently after Ace found out that Belle was innocent, she regretted what she did to Belle, having rejected him and hid him. She didn't leave her room for 2 months, she didn't even go on the family expeditions, but when they managed to get her out of her room she was no longer the same, she became more closed to people and cold, like her heart v. Also Ace felt that she had lost something very important to her. Belle and Cecilia after finishing eating, Belle paid for both of their meals, although Cecilia asked him not to, Belle said it was okay. After leaving each one went home for the next day. The next day. Belle can be seen in front of the guild waiting for someone until Cecilia arrived. Cecilia. I hope I didn't keep you waiting. Belle. I just arrived, are you ready? Cecilia. Yes. Belle. Okay, let's go he said entering the guild. Chapter 4. Return to the dungeon. Belle and Cecilia entered the guild so Belle could register as an adventurer. Upon arrival, Cecilia went to look for Ina to help her register him. Cecilia. Hello Ina. Ina. Hello Cecilia, how can I help you? She said smiling and noticed the hooded person next to her. And who is your friend? Cecilia. He's my friend B. But she was interrupted by Belle. Belle. I'm Jack, nice to meet you. Ina. The pleasure is mine and what can I do for you Cecilia? Cecilia. Well, I would like to. But again she was interrupted by Belle who spoke before. Belle, Jack. We came so you could help me register as an adventurer. Ina. Or give me a second, I'll bring the registration in a moment she said, leaving the reception to go to her office. Cecilia looked at Belle and said. Cecilia. In serio? Belle? What? Said confused. Cecilia. I understand that you hide your name at the bar because you didn't pay or because of Loki's family, but why do you hide your name from Ina? Belle. Because I don't trust her he said seriously. Cecilia. But Ina is a very good and trustworthy person. Belle was left thinking about some memories. Flashback. Belle could be seen arriving at the guild and he was looking for Ina to file a complaint because some adventurers attacked him in the dungeon. When he saw her he spoke to her. Belle. Only one. Ina, seeing him, looked at him with hatred, contempt and rage. Ina. Get that traitor out of here. Angrily shouts. Making all the adventurers of the guild look at him with hatred and they took him out before punching and kicking the poor rabbit. After the beating they threw him out of the guild. Ina said something before closing the door. Ina. And don't come back, dirty traitor. She said before slamming the door. Then flashback. Belle. Yes, I doubted it a lot he said with a little anger. Cecilia just sighed in defeat and Ina had already arrived. Ina. Well here is your registration. After handing in the registration someone called her. Ina, would you give me a little help? She said holding a mountain of papers. Ina. Hey. I'm coming Misha said going to help her friend. After that Belle asked Cecilia to help him fill out the sheet because he can't see and doesn't know where to write. After Cecilia helped Belle fill out the sheet, Cecilia gave her the sheet and Ina called her to come closer to her. After she came closer, Ina started to ask her. Ina. Cecilia, can I ask you something whisper? Cecilia. Of course Ina. Ina. How well do you know him? Cecilia. Well, 3 days. Ina. 3 days and you think he's trustworthy? Cecilia. Ina, don't worry, he's trustworthy, he's a good person she said carefree. Ina. I don't know, something doesn't add up about him she said looking at Belle who was sitting a few meters away from them. Cecilia. Ina I'll be fine, I know him, I doubt anything happened to me with him. Ina looked at Cecilia with concern, but after Cecilia gave her a sincere smile, she calmed down. Ina. Okay, I'll trust you she said, already relaxed. Cecilia and Ina went with Belle to the table, what they two didn't know was that Belle had heard them, then Belle and Cecilia were about to leave until they heard Ina. Ina. Wait Jack. Belle, Jack. What's going on? He said without turning around. Ina. Here in the registry you did not write down which family you belong to. Belle, Jack. I don't have a family he said without taking it seriously. Ina. Well, since you don't have family, you can't go beyond the 5th floor. Belle just nodded and retreated with Cecilia towards the dungeon. After arriving Belle and Cecilia went down to the 5th floor and stopped. Belle. Well, this must be the 5th floor. Cecilia. Yes. Belle. Okay, you stay here, I'll go further down. Cecilia. Wait, what? She said, surprised, but Ina told you that you couldn't go any further. Belle. Girl, if we want to collect the money to save your brother, I have to go further down, he said, to start walking towards the dungeon stairs. Besides, I have fought with stronger things. Cecilia. But. Cecilia remained silent and began to kill goblins she found. After 8 hours. Cecilia was sitting against the wall looking at the stairs waiting. She was waiting for Belle to come back since she had been inside the dungeon for 8 hours and he still hadn't returned. She was thinking that maybe something had happened to him, but her concern vanished when she started to hear footsteps. She got up from the floor and thinking that Belle had returned, she was surprised when she saw an adventurer run scared. Random event. Step aside. Said running past Cecilia. Cecilia. What's wrong with her? She thought, confused. He was surprised to see a minotaur coming up the stairs. The minotaur saw Cecilia and started chasing her. Cecilia. What the heck is a minotaur doing on the first floors? She thought, scared while running. Cecilia ran for her life and turned a corner thinking it was the exit, but unfortunately it was a dead end. Cecilia. There is no way out, she said, scared. Cecilia turned to her back and there was the minotaur. He had already cornered her. Cecilia had closed her eyes in fear when the minotaur had raised his axe to cut Cecilia. She was pierced by a katana and making a vertical cut, causing blood to fall on Cecilia, bathing her from head to toe. Cecilia had begun to open her eyes and heard a familiar voice. Belle. You're okay. When Cecilia saw Belle, she couldn't bear to jump towards him and hug him, staining him with blood. Belle. Hey, what the heck are you doing? You're going to stain me with blood. He said, a little annoyed. But I noticed that Cecilia started to cry. Cecilia. Belle. Sniff was scared. Sniff. I thought Sniff he would die, she said with her face on the white-haired man's chest and hugging him. Belle, knowing that the girl had been scared by the minotaur, hugged her to calm her down. Belle. Don't cry anymore, I'm here, you're safe now, he said with a soothing voice and hugging her. After a few minutes, Belle moved away a little and took the girl's face by both cheeks and made her see him. Belle. Are we leaving here now? He said with a smile that would make anyone feel safe. Cecilia. Yes, she said, already relaxed. Both left the dungeon in the direction of the guild, although on the way they caught the glances of one or another adventurer and people like whispers like, "One, what happened to them? Do I use the poor girl as a decoy?" And those kinds of whispers, but they didn't care. After they arrived at the guild, Ina was surprised and scared because Cecilia was covered in blood and Belle, Jack, his robes too, but from the chest down. After they were scolded, Cecilia explained what happened. Ina was surprised to hear that it was Belle, Jack, who killed the minotaur. After that they both left the guild and headed home while talking on the way. Belle. This is the second time he saved you. Cecilia. Hey, how was I supposed to know a minotaur was going to reach the 5th floor? And as Cecilia continued speaking, Belle was lost in his thoughts, wondering who sent the minotaur. Belle. It must have been the goddess Freya, he thought seriously, or the idiots of the Loki family let a minotaur escape again like before. But he was pulled out of his thoughts by Cecilia, who spoke to him. Cecilia. What do you think, Belle? Belle. What? He said, confused. Cecilia. Sigh, I was telling you that if you wanted to go with me to eat at the fertility bar to compensate you for saving me, she said happily and waiting for Belle's response. Belle. Sure. Cecilia. Okay, she said, walking away to go to her headquarters. I'll wait for you today at 8 in front of the bar. Belle just said goodbye and went to the hotel where he is staying. Skip already at 8. Belle was waiting for Cecilia in front of the bar. Cecilia was in civilian clothes when she arrived, but when she saw Belle she asked her. Cecilia. I thought you were going to come in normal clothes. Belle. But I'm wearing normal clothes. Cecilia. And the tunic, she said, a little annoyed. Belle. Remember, I have to hide my identity. Cecilia. True, okay, let's go, she said happily, entering the bar and being followed by Belle. After they ordered and started eating, they talked about things like what was next and how much money they were missing, but at that moment the Hestia and Loki family arrived at the place and Ina, Belle just ignored them, but Loki's family dog started talking. That. Reveria, getting her attention. Why don't you tell us the girl's story? Reveria. What girl? She said, confused. That. You know, the one you saved. Cecilia just shrank in shame and sadness at what they said about her. Reveria was going to say that she didn't go but was interrupted by That. And if it wasn't enough that he saved her, he didn't thank her and stole the crystal. Ha, typical of trash, don't you think? Ha 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 ha. Finn. Go away, said angrily. That. It's normal to talk trash to trash like her, she said angrily, and Cecilia's eyes were crystallized and she was about to cry. It would have been better if you hadn't saved her and you let her die. Finn. Enough already, you drank too much. Cecilia wanted to cry for what they said about her, but she felt a hand caress her head. She turned and saw Belle, who told her. Belle. Ignore him, he's just a stupid dog who has his mind in the clouds. Cecilia relaxed and just ignored Bet, but he did hear what they said, got up from his place and shouted. Bet. Who was the idiot who called me a stupid dog? Angry scream. The whole bar fell silent, but Belle stood up from his seat, but he felt Cecilia take his hand and say. Cecilia. Belle, no, whisper. Belle. Don't worry, whispered. After letting go of Cecilia's hand he turned to Bet and said, it was me. Bet walked towards Belle, and Belle also walked towards Bet. Belle stopped in front of Bet and he said to him. Bet. Who do you think you're, trash, calling me a stupid dog? Belle. And who do you think you are, bothering the newbies? Bet. It's normal to call trash trash. Belle. It's also normal to call stupid dogs. Bet. Damn. Bet wanted to attack Belle, but was stopped by Finn and Belle by Cecilia. Finn. You come with the right one. Cecilia. Yes. Finn. I must take this as a declaration of war. Cecilia. No. But she was interrupted by Belle. Belle. Don't mess with her, dwarf, I don't have a family, he said, surprising the people at the bar to turn towards Bet and say, but I don't need a skirt to put you on your knees so you can lick my shoes. Bet just looked at the hooded man with hatred, but then said. Bet. TSK, I don't have time to deal with trash like you, he said to turn around and leave. Belle turned around and said to Cecilia. Belle. See, Cecilia, a dog that barks doesn't bite, he said, making Cecilia laugh. Bet, hearing that, turned towards Belle, trying to punch him since Belle had his back turned, but when trying to hit him, Belle only tilted his head, avoiding the half-wolf's fist, then he elbowed Bet in the jaw, making him take a few steps back, and then hit him with the handle of his katana again in the jaw, making him fall. Bet, trying to get up, felt how he began to lose strength and then fell unconscious. This left the people at the bar surprised. After Belle paid for both of their meals they were about to leave, but as they left they heard someone they didn't like. Hestia. Wait. Hestia and Loki's family had left the bar to see the boy, while some waitresses watched from inside. Belle. I can help you with something, he said seriously without turning around. Hestia. It's true that you don't have a family. Belle. No, I don't have one. Hestia. Then you would like. But she was interrupted by Loki, who pushed her. Loki. Get out of the way, dwarf, he said, pushing Hestia. Hey kid. Belle. What? Loki. Would you like to join my family? Belle. Yo. But he was interrupted by Hestia, who arrived and started fighting with Loki over which familia he would join until Belle got fed up and said. Belle. I don't plan on joining any family. This surprised the goddesses and Belle continued speaking. Belle. I don't want to be betrayed like him, he said seriously. This made Hestia and Loki and their families and waitresses sad. Hestia asked. Hestia. Belle, you know where Belle is, she said with a look of hope. Belle. Yes. This answer gave Hestia and the families and waitresses hope. Hestia. Then you could. But she was interrupted by Belle. Belle. No. Hestia. What are you waiting for, why not? Belle. I heard what they did to him and I'm not going to tell you where he is. Belle was about to leave, but Hestia stopped him. Hestia. Wait, please tell us where he is, she said desperately, grabbing Belle's robe. Hestia had grabbed Belle's robe, causing it to come loose. When the robe came loose, everyone looked in shock at the hooded man, since he had snow-white hair, but a black blindfold covering his eyes. Hestia, out of shock, could only say one thing. Hestia. Be Belle. Chapter 5. The beginning of troubles. Hestia had grabbed Belle's robe, causing it to come loose. When the robe came loose, everyone looked in shock at the hooded man, since he had snow-white hair, but a black blindfold covering his eyes. Hestia, out of shock, could only say one thing. Hestia. Be Belle. Everyone looked at the white-haired man in shock, and Hestia, coming out of shock a little, said. Hestia. Be Belle said in shock, it really is you. She said as she reached out to touch Belle, but her hand was hit, pushing him away. She looked at him. Belle. Don't touch me, he said seriously. Hestia. Belle whispered, confused and sad. Belle just took his robe and put it back on. He turned around to leave, but a voice stopped him. Finn. Bell Cranel. Belle. What, said annoyed. Finn. We'd like to talk to you. Belle. No thanks. Finn. Belle, please, I know we did something wrong, but please listen to us. Belle. That day I asked them to listen to me, but they didn't because I would have to listen to them, he said to leave. This made Finn stay silent and some felt a pang in their hearts, but Harryhum spoke up. Harryhum. Belle, I know we did something wrong, but please come back and be a hero, my hero, he said with crystallized eyes. Belle stopped without turning around and said. Belle. Harryhum, I'm no hero, you said it yourself, I'm just a dirty traitor. This made Harryhum lower his head while shedding some tears, and when he was about to leave, Finn spoke to him again. Finn. Belle, I know you won't listen to us, but at least you'd answer a question. Belle. Sigh what? Finn. Where have you been? Belle. That's none of your business. Finn. Then why are you wearing blindfolds? He said confused. Belle didn't answer anything, he just turned towards the goddesses and their families and took off his blindfold. What they expected to see were Belle's ruby eyes, but no, they were just grey, the pupil couldn't be seen. Ina, God whisper with tears. Belle. I hope that answers your question, he said as he put the bandage back on. Although Finn was in shock like the others and said. Finn. Who did that to you? Said in shock. Belle didn't respond and continued on his way. Belle. Cecilia, let's go, he said passing by Cecilia. Cecilia. Hey. Why yes, she said coming out of shock and walking next to Belle. While at the Tower of Babel. This was seen by Freya, who was surprised and angry since she found out that the rabbit cannot see. Freya. Blind, my bunny is blind. Who was the bastard who made him blind? She said angrily. While Otter was silent, although his face did not show it inside, he was surprised to know that someone blind had defeated Alan, without a Falna and without sight. Back with Belle. Aze was shocked because the person she loves is blind, and not only that, he was accompanied by a girl. Is she his girlfriend? She wondered and began to imagine things. Imagination of Aze. Aze could be seen in front of Belle and Cecilia, although she was hugging her. Belle. What? I'm sorry Aze, but I don't love you anymore, he said turning around to leave. Cecilia. You lost your chance bitch, she said leaving with Belle. Aze fell to the floor with tears as she hit the floor. Out of imagination. Aze looked at Cecilia with a sharp look and said. Aze. I don't plan on losing him, seriously and determined whisper. Belle and Cecilia were walking in silence since neither said anything. Cecilia looked at Belle with concern, he felt how Cecilia looked at him and asked. Belle. Something's wrong, he said calmly. Cecilia. And no, she said turning to another place, but looked a little at Belle. Belle. I know you have something to say, Cecilia, come on tell me. Cecilia. Belle, are you nervous or scared? Belle. No, why not? He said confused. Cecilia. Well, your hand. Belle's right hand was holding the katana's handle tightly and was shaking. Why? He didn't even know. He just let go of the katana, closed his hand into a fist, took a breath to relax, and then let it shake. Cecilia. Are you okay? Belle. Yes, I'm fine, don't worry, he said, caressing Cecilia's head. Go to your headquarters tomorrow, we have things to do, so tomorrow I'll see you in front of the dungeon. Cecilia just nodded and left. Belle went to the hotel to rest. The next morning. Belle was preparing to go to the dungeon, but then he heard someone knocking on his door. At that moment Belle was already prepared. He went to the door and opened it, finding Cecilia. Belle didn't know why she was there, so he asked. Belle. Cecilia, why are you here? I thought I would find you in front of the dungeon. He said curiously. Cecilia. Well, after what happened last night I thought that. But she was interrupted by Belle. Belle. I'm fine, don't worry, he said relaxed. Cecilia. Really? She said unsure. Belle. Yes really, he said giving a small smile. Cecilia was a little doubtful of Belle, but she could only sigh and relax. Cecilia. Okay, let's go to the dungeon, she said calmly. Belle just nodded, although Cecilia asked him. Cecilia. Belle, you won't be wearing your hood. Belle. There's no need to hide anymore. They both left the hotel, and while they were walking they could hear whispers of adventurers saying. Avenrandom1. That's Bell Cranel. Avenrandom2. She found him. Avenrandom3. Damn lucky. While in one of the alleys you could see an adventurer from the Soma family. AVN1. I'll have to tell the others. Belle and Cecilia were talking about things, or well, Cecilia was talking, since Belle was just silent listening to what she was saying, but they heard someone calling Cecilia. Cecilia. Happy shout. Cecilia turned around and found Sir, who spoke to her. Cecilia. Hey, hello sir, she said happily. Sir and Ryu could be seen outside the bar with a bento each. Cecilia and Belle, upon arriving at the bar, Sir gave a bento to Cecilia and she thanked her. Ryu approached Belle a little and said. Ryu. I want to give this to you, Cranel, she said nervously giving him the bento. But Belle rejected it. Belle. No thanks, he said seriously. This made Ryu lower his head and Belle stepped to the side of Ryu and said. Belle. And don't worry, this dirty traitor won't come back to the bar, he said seriously and a little angry, passing by him. But before Belle could continue on his way he was stopped by Sir, who grabbed his arm and said. Sir. Wait, Belle said sadly. Belle. Let me go, he said angrily without turning around. Sir let go of Belle and lowered her head in sadness. Belle just grabbed her arm and said to Ryu. Belle. Ryu, can I ask you a question, he said without turning around. Ryu. Yes, he said, raising his head a little. Belle. That day because you couldn't trust me like I trusted you. Ryu. Cranel yo. Ryu didn't know what to say, he just remained silent and lowered his head further. Belle. I thought so, he said to start walking. Belle started walking. Cecilia could only watch everything in silence and saw Sir and Ryu, who had their eyes crystallized to the point that their tears threatened to come out. She could only approach and grab the bento that Ryu was carrying in her hands. She just looked up seeing Cecilia and she said to her. Cecilia. Don't worry, I know I'll give it to him, I'll make sure he eats it, so thank you, she said bowing. Cecilia started running a little to catch up with Belle when she arrived with him. Belle and Cecilia can be seen in front of the dungeon. Belle. Let's go, he said, entering and Cecilia following him. After entering the dungeon, Belle left Cecilia again on the 5th floor. Although she didn't want to stay there because of what happened last time, Belle assured her that it wouldn't happen again, and if it did, he would be able to save her. Belle could be found on the 7th floor killing killer ants while thinking some things, but he heard some adventurers from the Soma family talking about what he approached them, avoiding them knowing of his presence and listening to what they said. AVN1. Are you sure? AVN2. Yes, I saw the girl carrying Bell Cranel myself. AVN3. Wow, what will we do? AVN1. It's obvious we won't let her get to the 18th floor and we'll take her money and maybe we'll have fun with her. AVN3. But what floor is it on? AVN2. It must be on the 5th floor, let's go. AVN1. Go you guys, I'll catch up with you later. I have to do something first. He said to separate from the group. After they split up, Belle went after the one who broke away from the group. AVN1. Here it is, he said, taking out a box from under some rocks. Come with dad. What was in the box were golden adventurer accessories that had apparently been taken from some adventurers who had been murdered. AVN1. Wow, what kind of god do they have? He said with a smile, seeing a gold necklace with a red jewel. The adventurer was looking at the precious necklace but heard footsteps behind him. He put away the jewels and turned around, but there was no one there. He just ignored them and continued looking at the jewel, but felt the edge of a sword on his neck. This surprised him, and he saw how little by little a katana and its handle that had a bandage tied on it that said number 1 became visible. Then he raised his gaze a little to the right. A person became visible, but who was it? This was going through his head. He watched the person until he saw his white hair and he could only say the person's name or nickname. AVN1. Rabbitfoot said with surprise and fear. Belle just made a light movement with his sword, cutting the neck of the Soma adventurer, killing him. Belle was about to leave, but felt like he stepped on something metal. He bent down to grab it, and when he got up he had the gold necklace in his hand. He just kept it and left the place. On the 5th floor. Cecilia was killing goblins with a sword, but she heard footsteps, hoping it was Belle. She was surprised to see that it wasn't him, but adventurers from the Soma family. One of the adventurers attacked Cecilia, but she blocked him but received a blow to the stomach from the second adventurer. She fell to the floor clutching her stomach and felt how they pulled her by the hair, lifting her up and saying. AVN2. Give us the money. Cecilia. What money, she said in pain while holding her head. AVN3. Don't play dumb, you know whose money we're talking about, the one they gave you at the guild for finding Bell Cranel. Cecilia. They didn't give me anything, Kaya. Screams because they pulled her hair. When one of the adventurers was about to speak, they heard footsteps and someone calling. Cecilia, where are you? Cecilia wanted to scream, but the AVN2 covered her mouth, preventing her from screaming and making her breathe a cloth that was wet with something that made her unconscious. AVN2. Damn, said angrily. AVN3. Don't worry, I'll take care of it, he said as he left the room. After AVN3 left, a heart-rending scream was heard in the other room, which frightened the adventurer. AVN2. But what, he said nervously and scared. After the other room, what looked like a small thorn shot out and hit the adventurer in the left arm. AVN2. But what, he said removing the small thorn from his arm. What the hell is this? The thorn had a strange liquid. Then the adventurer's vision began to blur. He couldn't see much, just a small range, but he saw that everything around him was dark. The girl he had in his hands disappeared into the darkness and then began to receive cuts from different directions, causing him to kneel down in pain. AVN2. Shit. Said in pain from the cuts. Show yourself, you damn coward. Angry shout. From the darkness came Bell, with his katana in his hand. He only raised it to give his last cut, but the adventurer spoke. AVN2. Wait, you don't know who you're messing with, you don't know who I am. If you kill me, my family will come after you, and not only me. He was interrupted because Bell didn't care what he was saying and quickly cut off his head. Belle went to Cecilia, who was unconscious next to the wall of the room. He carried her and left the dungeon. Cecilia was waking up in an armchair. How did she get there? That's what she wondered. Then she heard some screams coming from Ina's office. She saw Belle come out and call him Ina. Ina. Belle, why don't you understand that you can't go to the dungeon anymore? She said seriously, with your current state you can't go anymore, it's for your safety. Belle. What do you care about my safety? He said seriously. Ina. Because I am your advisor and the one in charge of taking care of you, she said with an authoritative voice. Belle. Take care of me turns towards Ina. In what way? Tell me, did you take care of me that day? You didn't even believe me, he said, approaching Ina and standing in front of her. Tell me that day when all the idiots in this place beat me up, tell me what you did. Ina didn't know what to say, just lowered her head, but Belle asked again. Belle. Tell me, Ina, what did you do? Ina. Whisper. Belle. What? Ina. Nothing, she said with a brittle voice. Belle. It's true you didn't do anything, he said, turning around to leave, so don't give me that stupidity that you're in charge of taking care of me. Belle left the guild and Cecilia, who was silent, saw how Ina fell to her knees while crying. Misha. Ina, are you fine, he said, kneeling next to her. Ina. How Sniff can I Sniff feel okay? If Sniff I didn't protect the person Sniff that I had to take care of Sniff, if I hadn't been such an idiot, she said, crying on her knees on the floor. Cecilia left the guild in search of Belle since she confused him when he said that day. What did he mean? This was the question she asked herself. She went to the place where Belle was staying. When she got to the hotel she knocked on the door. Luckily Belle was there. He opened the door and said. Belle. Hey Cecilia, how are you feeling? He said calmly. Cecilia. Okay, can I come in? She said nervously and worried. Belle let her in. When he closed the door, Belle sat on the bed and Cecilia was still next to him and asked her. Cecilia. Belle, what were you talking about with Ina? Belle. It wasn't anything important, Cecilia, because the question said confused. Cecilia. Well, I saw them arguing, and what did you mean by that day? Belle. It was nothing important, he said nervously. Belle felt Cecilia's hand on his shoulder. Cecilia. Come on, you can trust me, she said, calming Belle. Belle was just hesitating whether to tell him or not, but he proceeded to tell him. Belle. Tell me, Cecilia, what did you hear from me when I was banished? Cecilia. Well, I heard that you were a spy for Ares and that you were banished. Belle. Just that, he said, a little surprised. Cecilia nodded. Belle. It's a lie. Cecilia. Well, the spy thing is obvious. Belle. Not that sigh. Not only did they banish me, they also beat me up, and he said, grabbing his blindfold, that day I went blind. Cecilia. How did it happen? She said, intrigued. Belle just stayed silent for a few minutes and started counting. Belle. It all started like a normal day. Chapter 6. Painful memories. Belle. I still remember that day. Everything started like a normal day. It was after a new member of the family had joined. That day Hestia, Lily, Welf, Mikoto and Harahume were behaving strangely. When I spoke to them they didn't speak to me. I thought they were lost in their thoughts, and I just went to my training with A's and I confessed my love to her, but it wasn't how I expected it to happen, and I got beaten up by her, she said, ducking her head. Flashback. Belle could be seen quite hurt on the floor and bleeding from the nose. In front of him was A's with a look of hatred. A's. How could I fall in love with a piece of trash like you, dirty traitor, she said with hatred before turning around and leaving. Belle with difficulty got up from the ground, wiping his nose, and left the place with some tears. Then flashback. Belle. I didn't understand why she hit me. I asked myself so many questions. Wasn't I strong enough to be with her? Is it because I'm weak? Am I not worthy of being with her? But most of all, it was, why did she call me a dirty traitor? Belle. After I left I went to the fertility bar to talk to Sir and Ryu about what happened to me. Bad idea. When I arrived I saw Sir outside. I greeted her, but she avoided me and entered the bar, and I tried to enter to find out what was happening, but I was kicked out of the place. Flashback. Belle could be seen climbing the stairs at the entrance of the bar, but at that moment he received a kick to the face, causing him to fall on the ground in the street. While Belle was still on the floor holding his left cheek, he saw an angry and serious Ryu come out. Belle. Ryu, why? He said, confused with small tears. Ryu. Get out of here, traitor, and never come back. She looked at him seriously and angrily while threatening him with a wooden sword. Belle didn't say anything, he just got up and ran away from the place with small tears in his eyes. Then flashback. Belle. I didn't understand what I did to make him hit me or why he called me traitor. After that happened I went to the dungeon, but adventurers attacked me. Luckily they were level 1, but I still got hurt. When I managed I went to the guild, and the same thing happened. Ina called me traitor, and all the adventurers there hit me. I just looked at Ina waiting for her to say something, but a tear came out of Belle's blindfold from his left eye under the blindfold. Cecilia was surprised by what Ina had done, she always saw her as someone good and kind. Belle. Nothing, he didn't say anything, he just laughed and watched me as they hit me, and then a blacksmith from the Hephaestus family came and tried to take my knife away, and when I refused, let's just say I was lucky not to die, after getting really hurt I met Maich. Cecilia, when she heard the name of her god, wondered what he did to Belle. She had become nervous. Belle. When I met Maich, he took me to his place to heal me and give me recovery potions. Cecilia calmed down upon hearing that her god helped Belle. Flashback. Belle could be seen leaving Maich's headquarters with a bandage on his head around his forehead and Maich behind him. Maich. Belle, could you tell me what happened to you? He said curiously. Belle remembered what happened to Ace, Sir, Ryu and Ina. Belle. Let's just say today is not my day, he said with a fake smile. Well, thank you Maich-sama, he said, bowing and leaving. The god Maich just watched from the door as Belle left and said. Maich. He is not a traitor, you will regret what you did, Hestia whisper. Then flashback. Belle. When I went to my place to rest from everything that had happened to me, I expected to see my ex-goddess to talk about what happened. When I went they were all at the entrance of the mansion. Flashback. Belle was heading to the entrance of the mansion when he wanted to enter. The grid door was closed. Belle did not understand why, but when he saw his goddess he spoke to her. Belle. Kami-sama, why is the door closed, he said curiously. Hestia. It's not obvious, it's to keep out people who aren't from this family, she said seriously. Belle. But Kami-sama, I am family. Hestia. No more. Belle. Hey. He said confused. Hestia. You didn't listen, you're no longer part of this family, traitor, she said angrily. Belle. Kami-sama, what are you? But he was interrupted by Hestia. Hestia. Don't call me that anymore, I'm not your goddess anymore, dirty traitor, she said to turn around and leave. Belle. Wait, Kami-sama, I'm not a traitor. He turns to look at Haruhime. You don't think I'm a traitor, do you? Haruhime. You are not a hero, you are just a traitor, he said while crying. Makoto began to comfort Haruhime and they left the entrance. Only Lily and Welf remained. Belle. Lily said with a hopeful look, waiting for her to say something, but she just turned around and left. Welf did the same thing as Lily. Belle had fallen to his knees as he grabbed a door railing with tears in his eyes. He began to hear footsteps behind him. He turned around and saw Loki's family. Then flashback. Cecilia just looked at Belle with concern and pity for everything he had suffered. Belle. Sigh. Then Loki's family arrived and they wanted me to leave Orario, but when I refused, they beat me and took me to the entrance of Orario's east, and that's when I lost my sight. Flashback. Belle could be seen on the floor injured at the entrance of Orario, and in front of him the Loki family. Finn. Get out of here, traitor, and never come back, he said while threatening him with a spear. Belle just got up with difficulty and started running away from Orario, but an elf wouldn't let him leave without leaving her a souvenir. Lefia. Don't forget your farewell gift, traitor, she said while chanting, making a ball of purple fire, which shot into the sky. Belle, hearing something approaching him, couldn't help but turn around, and boom, it hit him directly in the face, especially in the eyes, causing him to fall and clutch his eyes. Belle. Aggghhh. Screams, clutching his eyes, while on the floor writhing in pain. Lefia. Haha, right on target, she said with a malicious smile. Belle just got up and ran away even though he kept falling. Then flashback. Belle received a hug from Cecilia. Belle. What are you doing? He said, confused by Cecilia's action. Cecilia. Hugging you, you had to go through a lot, said sadly. Belle. Yes, Belle just remained silent while being hugged. I'll tell you something. Cecilia. Yes, she said while continuing to hug him. Belle. There are days when I wish it was just a horrible nightmare and I would even open my eyes hoping to see again, but when I did nothing, I couldn't see anything, I had to. Accept reality, I'm blind, my family abandoned me, all my friends turned their backs on me, but when I think about that, I think that I wouldn't have met my teachers and Yui. Flashback. Belle was guided by the elf to what looked like a huge 2-story house and a garden where he is training with mannequins and a small lake. The village. Belle, who was on a destroyed wall in front of a Yui who was on the floor watching the boy with amazement and surprise, but above all joy. Then flashback. Belle and Cecilia remained silent until they heard. Belle's stomach. Ggggrrrr. Belle. I'm sorry, I haven't eaten anything since morning. Cecilia just laughed a little and remembered what they had been given in fertility. Cecilia. Oh, that reminds me, she said, taking out the bentos here. Belle. What is this? He said, confused and taking the bento. Cecilia. This is what Sir and Ryu gave us at the bar. Belle made a face of disgust and said. Belle. Hey, why did you accept it if I rejected it? He said, a little angry. Cecilia. I know, but I couldn't leave her like that and I promised them you would eat it. Belle. You shouldn't promise things that you can't fulfill, he said, returning the bento to Cecilia. Thanks, but no thanks, I prefer to eat something else that doesn't come from them. And what are you doing? Cecilia had given Belle a piece of food. Cecilia. Feeding you now, say hi. Belle. No. Cecilia. Hiya said, trying to get Belle to eat. Belle. No. Cecilia. Hiya. Belle, already fed up with that, just sighed and said. Belle. Hiya, eating what Cecilia had given him. Although Belle wouldn't like to accept things that come from Sir Orario, he couldn't deny that the bar food was delicious. Belle. By the way, girl, this is the third time he saved you, said while eating. Cecilia. Well, it's just that I'm not very prepared and they were also level 2 adventurers, she said, embarrassed. Belle. Tell me what kind of armor you wear and what weapon you use, he said curiously. Cecilia. Well, I wear leather armor and use a short sword to kill goblins, she said simply. After he said that, the place went silent and Belle asked. Belle. So? He said in disbelief. Cecilia. And what? She said confused. Belle. Really, that's all you're carrying? He said doubtfully. Cecilia. Started to think that, and 2 potions. Belle had a face of disbelief since Cecilia was not very prepared, nor did she even have the appropriate equipment. Belle began to think and said. Belle. Cecilia, let's go, he said, getting out of bed and finishing eating. Cecilia. Hey. Where to? She said confused. Belle. To get you better armor. Cecilia. We'll go to the armory at the Tower of Babel, she said curiously, and leaving the room. Author. I don't remember if it was an armory or a market. Belle. Of course not, the only thing they sell there is just crap armor and weapons, he said, closing the door. We will go for real armor and weapons to my village. After leaving the hotel, Belle and Cecilia headed towards the eastern exit of Orario, but on the way they passed in front of the fertility bar. Cecilia. Wait, Belle, I have to return something. Although Belle didn't like arriving at the bar, he could only nod and stood waiting for Cecilia. Cecilia. Hello, sir, she said happily. Sir. Cecilia. Hello, she said happily and turned to look at Belle. She could only feel sadness and pain. Then Cecilia handed the bentos to Sir and said. Cecilia. I told you no, I got Belle to eat it, happy whisper. Sir was surprised and turned to see Belle. After Cecilia gave the bento to Sir, she returned with Belle to continue their way, but they were stopped by a voice. Hey boy. Belle. Yes, Mamma Mia said without turning around. Mia. Why haven't you come to my bar yet? I asked curiously. Belle. I was denied from returning to the bar by one of your waitresses, he said simply. Mia. Well, I didn't deny you coming to my bar, so come and eat when you're hungry, okay? Belle. Heh, I'll think about it, he said to continue on his way. Belle and Cecilia left, while Mamma Mia was silent, and besides Sir. Mia. Getting that boy's forgiveness will be difficult, but not impossible, she said while watching Belle and Cecilia walk away. Sir just looked at Mia and Belle, who was walking away, and had a look of hope. But Belle and Cecilia, they were walking in silence until Belle spoke. Belle. By the way, Cecilia, I have to talk to Maichi-sama. Could you guide me to his new headquarters? Cecilia just nodded and led Belle to what looked like a small mansion. Belle entered and was guided by one of the family members to Maichi's office and told Cecilia to wait outside, that it wouldn't be long, and so Belle left Cecilia outside the mansion waiting for him. Then someone came and called Cecilia. Hey you. Cecilia turned in the direction of where she was being called and found Ace. Cecilia. Princess of the Sword said, surprised. Ace. I'm Ace, you must be Cecilia, right? Cecilia just nodded. Ace. I wanted to ask you some questions. While inside the Maichi family mansion, Belle had given him some sheets that had recipes for really efficient potions, since the ones Maichi had before had been lost due to Ares' attack on Orario. Maichi. Thank you, Belle, you don't know how grateful I am to you, he said, bowing. Belle. No thanks to you, if it weren't for you helping me that time I would have died, and this is my way of paying you back, he said with a small smile. But then Belle's smile turned serious as he had felt a presence of a wind spirit. Belle. Okay, thanks Maichi, if you allow me, I'll leave. Maichi. So soon. Belle. I'm sorry but I have some things to do so I'm leaving, he said, bowing and leaving Maichi's office. Outside the mansion. Cecilia answered Ace's questions until she asked. Ace. And Cecilia, are you dating Belle? I asked seriously and with a sharp look. Cecilia denied. This calmed Ace and she thought she would have a chance to be with him. Ace. Well, you could tell him that. But she was interrupted by Cecilia. Cecilia. No, she said it would be. Ace was confused and wondered, no. No, what? Ace. No what? She said confused. Cecilia. You wanted to tell him but no, you don't deserve it. This made Ace surprised and angry. Belle did impossible things to be by your side, to be worthy of you, and you only hurt him so no, a person like you is not worthy of him, she said seriously and angrily. This made Ace angry, she unsheathed her sword to attack Cecilia, and when Ace's sword was a few inches from Cecilia. Clink. It was heard like two metals collided. Ace's sword had been stopped by a katana, he looked at who the katana belonged to and looked at Belle. Belle. I can help you with something, Princess of the Sword, he said seriously and angrily. Chapter 7. The First Encounter and Number 1. Belle. I can help you with something, Princess of the Sword, he said seriously and angrily. Ace, seeing what Belle was, walked away and put away her sword. Ace. Belle, this eye isn't what it looks like, she said nervously. Belle. That you tried to hurt Cecilia is not what it seems, he said seriously and angrily, while putting away his katana. I may be blind, Princess of the Sword, but not an idiot, now tell me what you want. Ace. Belle, I just want to talk to you. Belle. You and I have nothing to talk about, Princess of the Sword, he said seriously. Belle started walking towards the exit of Estate Orario, but stopped on the side of Ace. Belle. If I find out you did something to Cecilia, serious and quite angry whisper, your family will cease to exist overnight. He said to continue on his way and Cecilia just started to follow him. Ace just stood still and turned in the direction where Belle was leaving. Ace. Belle, you were never like this unless. He thought and then saw Cecilia who was walking next to Belle. Ace. You angrily whisper. Imagination of Ace. The Cecilia could be seen in front of a Belle who was kneeling in front of her with a necklace. Belle. I will obey all your orders, Cecilia-sama. Cecilia. I know bunny, I know, ha 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 ha, she started laughing evilly. End of Ace's imagination. Ace. Don't worry Belle, I'll free you, she said seriously and with a look of determination. While Belle and Cecilia were walking and heading to the exit of Estate Orario to meet the man who brought them, on the way Belle and Cecilia were silent until Belle spoke. Belle. Fourth time. Cecilia. Huh? She said confused. Although she did not understand what he meant, she wondered, fourth time what? Cecilia had lost in her thoughts wanting to know what he meant. After that they arrived with the man from the carriage. When he left, Belle lay down in the carriage to rest. Cecilia looked at Belle and wondered if it was painful. Since Belle laid his head on the wood of the carriage, Cecilia as a kind person approached and used legs, thighs, author. I don't know, as a pillow for Belle while stroking his head, but then Belle wakes up. Belle. What are you doing? He said confused. Cecilia. Well, I was thinking of giving you a pillow for. Belle had stood up, turned towards Cecilia and said. Belle. Don't do that again, he said seriously. Cecilia didn't understand why Belle had become serious or angry. Cecilia. I'm sorry, I don't, she said while lowering her head. Belle. You don't have to apologize, just don't do that again, I don't like it, he said while relaxing. Cecilia didn't understand why she didn't like him, but Belle did, since that reminded him of when he had fallen madly in love with a girl who only hit him and never loved him, something that Belle hated the most, having been someone so idiotic. After the carriage stopped signaling that they had arrived, Belle and Cecilia had gotten off the carriage, thanked the man, and headed to the cabin where Belle lives, meeting Yui who was standing at the door, who greeted both of them, and they returned the greeting, and not only that, Yui also went to Belle to give him a hug, and also a kiss that was reciprocated by Belle. After that they separated. Yui. You finally came back, she said happily. Belle. Even if I wanted to go back, I still haven't finished helping Cecilia. Yui. Then why are you here, she said confused. Belle. We only came back to get him some armor and a better weapon, he said to turn in Cecilia's direction. I'll leave you with Yui, I'll see you later. Cecilia just nodded. Belle entered the cabin to go to his room and take out another small box from under his bed. While Yui and Cecilia only entered the cabin to talk and have some tea. Yui. Hey, hasn't Cecilia Belle caused you any problems? She said something doubtful since she knew what had happened to her in Orario. Cecilia. No, she said nervously. Hey Yui. Yui. If that happened, Cecilia. Cecilia. How did you meet Belle? I asked somewhat curiously. Yui just remained silent and asked. Yui. Why the sudden question? She said curiously. Cecilia. Hey. No, she said nervously. Well, Belle told me what had happened to him, my only question is how he met you. Yui just gave a small laugh, then looked at Cecilia and said. Yui. Well, let's just say that when I met Belle, it wasn't the best way, she said a little sad and looking at her cup of tea. This confused Cecilia and Yui looked at Cecilia. Yui. It all started one night when the village was celebrating the birth of a child of a couple from the village, but what happened next? Flashback. You could see Yui who was sitting next to some people and her father, around a campfire talking, eating and the children playing. Until a child noticed something in the sky and spoke to his mother. Child. Mommy said, pulling his shirt, getting his mother's attention. Villager. What's up, son? She said happily. Child. Why does the moon look so strange, he said, pointing at the sky. The mother and some villagers looked where the child was pointing and were terrified to see what it was. The people of the village were scared. The giant eye had not noticed the people of the village, but a villager screamed, calling the attention of the giant eye and some small eyes that had been accompanying him. The mother just grabbed her son and ran to enter her home. Many villagers did the same. Then flashback. Cecilia. A monster, she said, surprised. Yui just nodded and said. Yui. Not just any monster, it was one of the colossal monsters. Cecilia. Colossal monster? She said, confused. Yui. You know it's a colossal monster. Cecilia just shook her head. Yui. Well, let me tell you, Cecilia, that the colossal monsters are even more dangerous than the dungeon monsters, even more dangerous than the one-eyed black dragon. This surprised Cecilia since she did not know that there could be a monster more dangerous than the black dragon. Cecilia. Where did these colossal monsters come from? She said curiously. Yui. These monsters were locked in a place similar to Tartarus, but the god Ares freed them. He thought he could control them, but he, like his army and his kingdom, perished, since these monsters want to kill and destroy all existence, all life on earth. This scared Cecilia a little. Yui. But well, we are getting away from the topic. Cecilia just nodded, although she had more doubts about the colossal monsters. Yui. Then my dad and I entered the house. Although my father wanted to help the neighbors of the village, I tried to prevent him from leaving, but my father was always one of those people who are stubborn, and well, the worst happened. Flashback. Yui was seen scared and her father was next to her. Although outside the house cries for help and pleas could be heard, Yui's father did not hesitate and took out a sword hidden under the stairs and headed for the door, but his daughter stopped him. Yui. Dad, where are you going? She said, worried and scared. Yui's father. Hi. I think I'll help the neighbors, he said, opening the door a little. Yui. What? She said, surprised and worried, but if you go out they'll kill you. Hi. And if I don't do it, they'll kill them. But a loud bang was heard that made Yui fall on her back. When she got up a little, she noticed that the door where her father was, there was only a huge gap. Yui. Dad no. Screams while crying. Then flashback. Yui just sighed as she remembered her father's death, and Cecilia looked at her worried. Yui. Later. Flashback. Yui. Sniff, Dad said while crying. Then she looked up a little to see 7 eyes floating in front of her, and each one open, showing a row of teeth ready to devour. Yui just walked away until her back hit the wall, and she turned to the wall, and then to her eyes. Yui closed her eyes while crying. Yui. Please, Sniff, someone save me, Sniff whispered. Yui was thinking that no one would save her, and she was just waiting for them to devour her, but at that moment she heard cuts and things falling to the floor. When she opened her eyes, she found a boy with white hair and bandages covering his eyes, and he asked her. Belle. Are you okay? Yui couldn't say anything as she was surprised to see the boy. Then flashback. Yui. And that's how I met Belle, said happily. Yui. Well, Belle wanted to leave, and I asked him to stay at least a few days, and well, those days turned into weeks, and those weeks, months, and those months into a year, and we lived here peacefully until. But she was interrupted by Belle, who had arrived. Belle. Until you arrived, he said, finishing Yui's sentence. This surprised Cecilia, who screamed and raised her hands, throwing the cup of tea. Luckily, Belle caught the cup, although the tea fell on him, soaking him. Cecilia. When did you arrive? She said, surprised. Belle. I just arrived, he said, putting a box on the table and drying it with a cloth. Cecilia. What is this? I asked curiously. Belle. It's your armor and weapon, he said, showing what was inside the box. When Cecilia opened the box, she could see a light blue armor with some white stripes and a sword, similar to the one she had but the same color. Cecilia. Wow, she said, really surprised. Belle. I know, now go rest because tomorrow morning we will leave for Orario. Cecilia just nodded, grabbed the box and went up the stairs and headed to one of the rooms where Yui said she would rest. Belle just left the cabin and sat on a log that was outside the cabin, and Yui approached and sat next to him. And leaned her head on Belle's shoulder and he leaned his head with hers. The next morning. Belle and Cecilia had said goodbye to Yui and the people of the village and were in the carriage heading to Orario. Cecilia. I already want to try this new armor and weapon, she said happily, like a child when he receives a new toy. Belle. Before you use them we have to get to a place. Cecilia did not understand what he meant. After they arrived at Orario, Belle asked Cecilia to take him to the top of the walls of Orario. When they arrived, Cecilia asked. Cecilia. Belle, what are we doing here? I asked, confused. Belle. Well, we came here to train. Cecilia. Train? She said doubtfully. Belle. If you need to learn how to fight, he said, standing in front of Cecilia a few meters without turning around. Cecilia. But I already know how to fight, I've fought against the dungeon monsters. Belle. You know how to fight against monsters, he said, turning towards Cecilia, but not with people. That's why we came to train you, so that you can defend yourself from any adventurer who tries to harm you. Cecilia. I see, she said, already understanding things. Belle. Okay, your training starts now. Belle told him to do a series of movements and then attack him with the movements he had learned. 4 hours later. Cecilia was lying on the floor exhausted. Belle was just standing next to her until he said. Belle. Girl, what are you doing? He said, confused. Cecilia. Resting, she said, panting heavily. This training is quite hard, you never told me it was difficult. Belle. I never told you it was easy, he said simply. Cecilia just pouted, but saw that Belle moved his head a little as if looking back towards the stairs, then took out a small dagger and threw it. The dagger stuck in the floor, thus making an elf girl jump out of her hiding place. The girl squealed. Cecilia. An elf? She thought, confused. Belle. Lefia said seriously and hated as he turned towards the elf. Lefia. Bell Cranel said, scared and nervous. Belle was just turning in the direction of the elf, the atmosphere became tense, the elf just looked at Belle with fear and nervousness. Belle. Cecilia. Cecilia. Yes, Belle. Belle. Your training is over today, you can go. Cecilia didn't say anything, she just nodded and got up from the ground and went in another direction, although she hid to see what happened. Belle. Sigh, this girl doesn't know that I can feel her, he thought, annoyed while lowering his head a little in disapproval. Afterwards, Belle just raised his head in Lefia's direction and said. Belle. I can help you with something, Lefia said seriously. Lefia. Bell Cranel, I came here to, she said nervously, take responsibility. Belle. Take responsibility? Said confused. Lefia. It was my fault that you went blind and. But she was interrupted by Belle. Belle. And you think that by taking responsibility I will forgive them? Lefia. Huh? She said, confused. Belle. I'll tell you again, do you think that by taking responsibility I'll forgive them? He said, slowly approaching Lefia. Do you think that by taking responsibility you'll give me back my sight? Lefia. Well, me, I said, nervous and scared. Belle had stopped in front of Lefia and she was trembling with fear. Belle. So tell me what you want to achieve by taking responsibility, he said seriously and angrily. Lefia just looked at Belle in fear until he screamed. Lefia. I will accept any wish, punishment or anything you want to do to me. Belle. Anything? He said seriously. Lefia just nodded. Belle. Okay, he said, raising his hand. Lefia had closed her eyes in fear and Cecilia was surprised. Lefia was expecting a blow or abuse, but all she felt was a caress on her head. She opened her eyes and looked at Belle. Belle. My wish is that you never bother me again, you understand, he said seriously. Sigh, now go away. Belle turned around to face the outskirts of Orario. Lefia didn't understand why he didn't do anything to her, but she chose not to ask and she just left. Cecilia left her corner and stood next to Belle, looking at the outskirts of Orario. Belle. Tell me, Cecilia, what's going on, he said calmly. Cecilia. Well, she said to think and then say, I thought you would do something to him. Belle. No, I don't have the need to get my hands dirty with her, he said calmly. Cecilia didn't understand what he meant. Cecilia. I don't understand. She said, confused. Belle. She's scum for harming someone innocent, and if I had agreed to harm her, it would only show that I'm worse than her. Cecilia still didn't understand the reason why he didn't do anything to her, but he spoke. Belle. Cecilia, I'll stay here a little longer. You can go. Cecilia. Are you sure? She said doubtfully and looked at Belle in surprise. Belle. If you don't worry, I'll be careful when I get down, he said without turning around. Cecilia didn't say anything, she thought Belle wanted to be alone, so this time she left. Belle, even though he didn't want to admit it, he wanted to hit the elf for what she did to him, but thanks to his teachers who guided him on the right path and taught him to compress his emotions, he was able to control himself. But something was bothering him, someone had been following him since they entered Orario, so Belle said. Belle. You know your breathing gives you away, right? He said seriously. Bikikiki laughs evilly. Ara, they don't call you number one for nothing. Belle. What do you want? He said, annoyed, and one hand went to the handle of the katana and the other hand to the sheath. Nothing, I just came to remove that bandage, he said, pointing to the white bandage from your corpse. He said to jump and try to stab Belle with two weapons that looked like Ace's sword but smaller. Chapter 8. Something impossible. Nothing, I just came to remove that bandage, he said, pointing to the white bandage from your corpse. He said to jump and try to stab Belle with two weapons that looked like Ace's sword but smaller, although Belle dodged it with great ease and made a horizontal cut making her jump backwards. "Wow, you're really not number one for nothing," he said laughing. "Tell me something, how could that bandage end up in the hands of someone blind like you?" Belle said nothing, he just stayed silent and stood on guard. "You won't tell me, well it doesn't matter, soon you'll stop being number one," he said without giving it importance and then jumped to attack Belle again. Moments before at the Tower of Babel. In the Tower of Babel on the sofa was the goddess Freya, quite furious upon learning that the culprit of her bunny being blind was one of the Loki family. "Freya. So you were the one who left my bunny blind, damn elf bitch," she said furiously, still with a smile. "Freya. Otter. Otter. Yes," Freya-sama said stoically as always. "Freya. Tell the others to prepare, because there will soon be a war game, and it will be against the Loki family," she said looking at the crystal, and in it Lefia was seen. "Otter. I don't think we can do it, Freya-sama." "Freya. Why not, Otter?" she said confused and serious. "Otter. Because the Loki family hasn't done anything to us." "Freya. But they were the ones responsible for blinding my bunny," she said still with her smile and a little serious. "Otter. Still, he was never part of our family and suddenly declaring a war game wouldn't make sense," Stoic said. "Freya. Sigh, you're right," she said looking at the glass and thinking, "then I want you to eliminate someone." "Otter." "Freya-sama." But he was interrupted by the goddess Freya. "Freya. Don't worry, of course you won't do it, you'll send someone to do it for you." "Otter." "Suspiro see Freya-sama." He said to leave the room and leave his goddess alone. Freya continued looking at the crystal. "Freya. I'll make you pay for what you did to my bunny, damn elf," she said looking at Lefia, then changing to see Belle moments before their fight. "Don't worry my bunny, no one will hurt you anymore, and if they do I'll make them pay and torture them to death." Back to the present in the city of Orario with Cecilia. Cecilia was walking through the streets of Orario heading to her place to rest. Although her blue armor attracted a lot of attention from the adventurers and the people who whispered, "What a cool armor he's wearing. Didn't you hear she was the one who found Bell Cranel?" "What? So she. Wow, what you get with money. The rich humiliating the poor." And that kind of whispers, although Cecilia didn't care since she was humming and singing a song. "Cecilia. It's Zeus," she said arriving at the mansion. "Maich-sama, I'm here." "Maich. We're in the Cecilia room." Screams a little from the room. Cecilia had headed towards the living room and when she arrived she saw her god and Naza. "Cecilia. Hello, Naza." "Naza. Hello," Cecilia said with a funny smile and laughing a little like Maich. Cecilia didn't understand what was happening. "Cecilia. What's going on here? I missed something," she said confused. "Maich, no, nothing, Cecilia," he said with a small laugh. "What do you need, Cecilia?" "Cecilia. Well, I came to tell you that I won't be going to the dungeon for a while and I need you to update me on my status." Maich just nodded and told Cecilia to sit in front of her and lift her shirt. She did as requested. Maich. "Congratulations, Cecilia, you are now level 2, said happily. Cecilia. "Seriously, let me see," she said happily. Maich gave the sheet to Cecilia and she looked happily at her sheet. Name. Cecilia. Gender, female. Age. 15 years. Family. Maich. Level. 2. Strength. I0. Stamina. I0. Dexterity. I0. Agility. I0. Magic. Ability. Cecilia looked with joy at her. Cecilia. "Thank you, Maich-sama, I'll go tell Belle," she said happily and was about to leave but was stopped by Maich. Maich. "Of course, Cecilia," but before that he said while a small laugh escaped, "Haven't you noticed something about Naza?" Cecilia. "Hey?" she said confused and then looked at Naza. No, what would it be?" Maich. "Naza." Then he raised his right arm, it was no longer a prosthesis, this surprised Cecilia. Cecilia. He. Screams in surprise. "Naza, your arm." Naza. "I know," she said happily, "I'm just as surprised as you." Cecilia looked at her god and said. Cecilia. "Maich-sama, how did he do it?" Maich. "It was thanks to the potion recipes that Belle gave us," he said happily. Cecilia looked at Naza with impression and she was happy looking at her arm, then Cecilia looks at Maich. Cecilia. "Maich-sama, do you think that?" Maich. "I don't know if I can give Belle his sight back," he said turning to look at Naza and then at Cecilia, "but if I give Naza's arm back, maybe I can give Belle his sight back." Cecilia looked at her god with hope and said. Cecilia. "She has another potion." Maich. "Yes," he said taking out a box with potions and gave one to Cecilia. "Here it is, make her drink it all, so the potion works." Cecilia just nodded and thanked her god before running out of the mansion towards the hotel where Belle is staying. But Belle on the wall. The girl who tried to harm Belle could be seen lying on the floor, quite hurt, trying to reach one of his swords. A little more he said trying to reach the sword But Bell had managed to fit the edge of his katana into the girl's neck. Bell pulled the edge of his katana from the girl's neck and moved it slightly causing blood to splatter, cleaning the katana and putting it back in its sheath. Bell prepared to leave the wall and was walking through the streets of Orario and was remembering things his master had told him. Flashback. You could see a Bell kneeling in front of one of his masters, and this was an Afro samurai who was handing him his sword with his white bandage. Afro. Congratulations Bell, you're ready. Now here it is. He said, handing him his katana with the white bandage. Now you are number one. Bell was carefully touching the sheath and handle of the katana and also feeling the bandage. Bell just raised his head and said. Bell. But master, I only managed to hit him once. Do you think I'm ready to be the new number one? He said doubtfully. Afro. With just that blow it was enough since without needing sight you have managed to hit me and believe me, no one has ever managed to hit me, so if you are ready Bell. Afterwards, Bell could be seen with his armor a little torn and wearing a robe saying goodbye to his teachers. Afro. Bell, I want you to remember there are many people who will want to be number one and will do everything to take off that blindfold, so be careful. Bell decided to leave the place, his teachers just watched him go. Elf. You won't tell Bell the truth he said looking at Afro. Afro. What are you talking about? He said confused. Elf. Don't play dumb, you and I know that Bell hit you more than once. Afro. I know I can't even compete with him anymore he said while watching Bell disappear into the distance, but I prefer not to tell him so he won't have his head in the clouds. Then flashback. Bell upon arriving home was taken out of his thoughts as he met Cecilia as she was looking for. Bell, what are you doing Cecilia? I asked. She was surprised because she thought Bell was inside her room. Cecilia. Hey. Bell was looking for you. Bell. What do you need me for now? He asked confused and opened the door to his room. Cecilia entered and Bell closed the door. Bell. Did you get into trouble again? He said a little seriously. Cecilia. No, she said waving her arms I just wanted to give you this. He said handing him a bottle that had a light red liquid which Bell said to receive. Bell. A jar said confused. Cecilia. It's not just a bottle she said happily it's a potion that will make you recover your sight. Bell knowing where Cecilia wanted to go, did not want to disappoint her since she drank many things to try to recover her sight, but nothing works. Bell. Cecilia, I don't think so. But he was interrupted by Cecilia who was happy. Cecilia. Come on Bell, try it, I know it will give you back your sight she said happily and excitedly. Bell just sighed and removed the blindfold that covered his eyes showing his grey eyes, he proceeded to drink the potion and this was seen by a really excited Cecilia, when Bell finished the potion his eyes stopped being grey and returned to being red. Cecilia. Wow said surprised. Unfortunately, his eyes returned to their former state, they stopped being red and turned grey. Cecilia. That they shouldn't have she said surprised something must be wrong. Bell. Cecilia said trying to get her attention. Cecilia. Maybe we need more or you didn't drink it all. Bell. Cecilia called again. Cecilia. Or maybe something went wrong, I'll come back later and tell my Sama. But she was stopped because someone grabbed her arm and Cecilia turned around and saw Bell. Bell. It's okay, don't worry he said calmly. Cecilia. But it's just that she said discouraged. Bell. I know Cecilia, but it's impossible believe me I've tried everything he said putting the blindfold back on maybe the spell Lefia used was a forbidden one or it was a curse, that's the reason why my eyes don't heal. Cecilia just lowered her head sadly because the potion did not heal Bell's eyes. Bell. Cecilia, thank you for trying to help me he said stroking Cecilia's head and giving her a small smile. Cecilia could only sigh and smile, although she was a little sad. Bell. Tell me Cecilia, you only came here to give me the potion he said curiously. At that moment Cecilia remembered that she also wanted to let him know that she had leveled up. Cecilia. No, I also wanted to tell you that I leveled up she said a little happily now I'm level 2. Bell could only smile and stroke Cecilia's head again. Bell. Congratulations Cecilia he said caressing Cecilia's head and thinking you know why we don't celebrate your level promotion what do you say I'll treat. He said to head to the door and leave the room and Cecilia behind him, after both left the hotel Bell and Cecilia headed to the guild, although Cecilia did not understand why they came to the guild she wondered. Cecilia. Bell, why are we coming to the guild? Bell. Well, we just came to let the guild know that you leveled up. Then we'll go somewhere to celebrate. He said simply. When Bell and Cecilia entered the guild someone spoke to Bell. Only? Bell. Bell. Sigh yes Ina said something tired. Ina. Someone wants to talk to you. Bell. Who said seriously? Me boy. The place fell silent and some adventurers and workers were surprised. Bell. Uranus said seriously. Uranus. Belle. The place fell silent once again and Cecilia was in shock. Belle. Cecilia, go to the bar, I'll catch up with you later. He said relaxedly. Cecilia. Yes. He left the place. When he left, Cecilia was somewhat surprised and thoughtful. Cecilia. Because Uranus wants to talk to Belle, she thought something curious. But she was taken out of her thoughts when a girl who was hurt came running and asking for help, but apparently some just ignored her and she fell and Cecilia came to help her get up and asked her. Cecilia. What's going on? Please help Lefia, some people attacked us in the dungeon, she said while bowing. When Cecilia heard the name, she was alone. She doubted whether to help or not, since it was her fault that Belle was blind, but she saw the hurt girl who was crying and begging for her help, and Cecilia could not deny. Cecilia. Where is she? On the 16th floor. Cecilia just nodded and headed to the dungeon, while Belle had already left the guild and was about to head to the bar, but someone stopped him. Hey boy. Belle. I can help you with something, Otter said seriously. Otter just stood next to Belle and said. Otter. Your friend went to the dungeon towards the 16th floor to help someone, said stoically, and then walked away. Belle just hesitated because he thought it was a trap or something like that, since he knows the tricks of the goddess Freya, but he heard some whispers. Ahaha, they'll kill that girl. The idiot thinks she's going to help someone on the 16th floor. Belle. Sigh, this girl said something annoyed. He just went towards the dungeon. Chapter 9. Hero. Belle. Sigh, this girl said something annoyed. She just went towards the dungeon. Cecilia was going down the floors and killing the monsters she found. When she had reached the 16th floor, she was walking through the corridors looking for the elf, but she found 3 people who belonged to the Loki family, lying on the floor lifeless, or so she thought. Among the people lying, one was moving. Coughed blood and held his stomach. Cecilia approached him to help him, but when she got closer, he said something that Cecilia did not understand. Whisper. Cecilia. What? She said confused. What? He gasped. Careful, he said while he was dying. From the shadows a man came out and attacked Cecilia, trying to kill her. She managed to dodge the attack by jumping a few meters away from the man. Cecilia. Where is the elf? She said seriously and on guard. The man just looked at Cecilia and looked in all directions. This is a joke, right? He said doubtfully. Cecilia. Hey. She said confused. Don't tell me that only you came to save her, he said incredulously, and then started laughing. Ha 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 ha, you better go, girl, and don't play the hero, ha ha ha. Cecilia. Shut up, bastard, and tell me where you have the elf. Screams angrily. The man stopped laughing and stood on guard. How can a piece of trash like you dare to offend me, he said, taking out his sword. I think I have to teach you where your place is. The man jumped, making a vertical cut. Cecilia protected herself from the attack and used her sword to stop him. Cecilia. It's very fast, she thought, surprised. But she was brought out of her thoughts when she received a kick in the stomach from the man. Cecilia. Spitting out a little saliva. When she stepped back, the man gave another cut, but horizontally. It was just a hair's breadth, and Cecilia, due to the distraction, couldn't stop him. This made Cecilia step back again and fall to one knee while she touched her stomach because of the pain. Cecilia. Damn, be it whisper in pain. Ahaha, typical of trash like you, ha said between laughs and angering Cecilia. Well, let's finish this. He said as he raised his sword to make a vertical cut. Cecilia took advantage of the fact that the man felt very confident to jump and make a cut. Cecilia could be seen behind the man with her back to him, and a loud scream was heard from the man. Ah. My arm. Ah. He screamed while holding part of his arm and fell to his knees. Cecilia had managed to cut off the man's arm. She turned around to stand behind the man and put her sword to the man's neck. Cecilia. Now tell me where the elf is, she said seriously. The man only whispered a few things that Cecilia didn't understand and she approached him. Cecilia. What are you saying? She said confused. I said what an idiot, haha, he said, and then hit Cecilia in the face with his other arm. Due to the blow, Cecilia had fallen backwards, holding her nose as it was bleeding, and the man began to laugh. Ha, what an idiot, he said to grab his severed arm and put it back on and taking a healing spell, thus healing Ha like new. He said as he moved his arm and then looked at Cecilia on the floor and then kicked her, throwing her against the dungeon wall. Ahaha, look at you, ha, he said mockingly. I told you to go, brat, but it seems you wanted to play the hero. He said as he picked up his sword and slowly approached Cecilia. And she was trying to get up. Although you remind me of a rabbit, which it was, but you are not like it, he said while raising the sword to make a vertical cut. You are not. The man, when making the attack, his sword was stopped in the air because it had collided with something, but when he saw nothing, but at that moment a katana and the person who apparently used invisibility to not be noticed began to show. The man, when turning to see the person, recognized her by her white hair. Rabbitfoot, said the man, surprised and scared. How is it possible that? The man said as he quickly walked away from Belle, but the man saw that Belle was wearing a black blindfold covering his eyes, implying that Belle is blind, and he just smiled, thinking that he could take advantage of Belle being blind to harm him, so he jumped and attacked him. Serious mistake. Die. He said, trying to cut Belle. But Belle only made a slight movement with the katana, cutting the man's neck. He only fell to his knees while holding his neck, then fell face down to the floor and bled to death. Belle approached Cecilia and gave her a healing potion, and he asked her, a little angry. Belle. Cecilia, could you tell me what you're doing here? I asked seriously and a little angry. Cecilia. Well, I came to help someone who is in trouble, she said as she stood up. Belle. Well, technically you're the only one who was in trouble, said, helping Cecilia up. Cecilia. No, there is someone else, but I don't know where he is, she said while turning to look at Belle. Belle just sighed and concentrated. He could feel the presence of more than one person in a room near the entrance to the floor manager's room. Belle. Okay, wait for me here, I won't be long. He said, turning around to walk. Cecilia. But. Belle. I said wait for me here, he said seriously. Cecilia just stood there and nodded while Belle started walking in search of the person he was going to save. While on the other side you could see a really hurt Lefia. She was breathing with difficulty and was bleeding from the mouth from the blows she received, and she begged and cried. She just looked at the entrance, waiting for a person with golden hair and golden eyes to save her. Unfortunately he didn't come, and the men setter argued something. 1. Well, I'll be the first. 2. No, I won't be. 3. Idiots, whispered one of those leaning against the wall. 4. You won't do anything, he said authoritatively, since he is apparently the leader. Just kill her now so we can collect the reward. 5. Oh come on, don't be a party pooper, at least let us have fun with her before you kill her. 1. 2. Yes please. 4. Sigh, good that it is fast. While the other three approached and tore the clothes that Lefia was wearing, leaving her in her underwear. She tried to resist, but for doing so they hit her in the face. Lefia just cried and looked at the door, asking for someone to come and save her, but she lost hope, and accepting her fate, she just closed her eyes waiting for the worst. But at that moment she could hear one of the men say. 3. Huh? Who the hell are you? Ah. Screams as I'm cut off. The man had been killed by someone, and Lefia, who had her eyes closed, could only hear how the other men were killed. After the place became silent, Lefia opened her eyes slowly, expecting to see Ace, but she was surprised to see another person. The person she harmed was in front of her. To her, when she saw him, he looked like one of those heroes from the stories that were read to her. Author. Please imagine him with bandages covering his eyes. After that, Lefia was only unconscious. Belle approached, and when he touched her, he noticed that she was not wearing clothes and took off his robe to cover the elf. Then Belle arrived with Cecilia while carrying an unconscious elf on his back. Belle. Okay, I found her, let's get out of here, he said seriously. Cecilia. Yes. Then they both started walking towards the exit, but Cecilia had stopped and looked at the entrance to the 17th floor. She was thinking, but was taken out of her thoughts when Belle spoke. Belle. I know what you're thinking, he said, stopping and without turning around, but we still don't have enough money to go save him, but don't worry, we'll save him soon. For now, let's get this elf out of here. He said to continue walking, and Cecilia stood in silence and looked at Belle and then at the entrance of the 17th floor. Cecilia. I'll save you soon, little brother, she whispered. She said to go after with Belle to the exit of the 16th floor. Both walked in silence as they crossed the floors. Cecilia tried to start a conversation, but when she thought about speaking she remained silent, since she thought that Belle would be angry with her for going to the dungeon alone. Both were walking in an awkward silence until Belle broke it, saying. Belle. 5th time, said relaxed. Cecilia. 5th time? She thought, confused. Cecilia didn't know what Belle meant by 5th time. This confused her, and when she thought of asking, she was interrupted by an elf who spoke in her sleep. Lefia. I'm so sorry, she said sleepily and shed small tears. This surprised Cecilia, but Belle did not take it seriously, but felt how the elf hugged him tighter. When the three were leaving the dungeon they met the captains of Loki's family who came running to help the elf, and they were surprised to see Cecilia and Belle leave the dungeon, and he with the elf on his back asleep. When Loki's family approached, Belle handed over the unconscious elf, but apparently at first she did not want to let go of him. When Reveria began to heal, Lefia looked at Belle with surprise, and she thanked him for saving her apprentice. Reveria. Thanks, Bell Cranel thought. After that Belle just continued on his way but was stopped by Finn, who spoke to him. Finn. Wait, Belle. Belle had stopped without needing to turn around, he just moved his head a little to one side. Belle. What? He said seriously. Finn. Thank you very much, Belle said, making a small bow for saving her. Thank you. Belle just ignored him and continued on his way. Cecilia was with him on one side, although she felt uncomfortable as she received a sharp look from Ace, who looked at her with hatred. When they were about to leave they were stopped by a werewolf. Bet. Hey you rabbit, I called his attention, making him stop. Belle. Sigh, what a bet, he said, annoyed. Bet. I want revenge, Rabbit said angrily. Belle. Rematch. Said confused. Bet. Yes, I want revenge, Rabbit said angrily because of what happened at the bar that day he was drunk. Belle. No. Bet. No, what? Belle. I said no, I don't have time to deal with you, he said simply and continued on his way. I have more important things to do. When Bet was thinking of attacking Belle, he was stopped by Finn and he forbade him from attacking Belle or starting a fight. All of this was seen by the two Amazon twins, but one of them had her eyes on Belle and his katana, but especially on his white bandage. Tiona had her eyes on the white bandage. Tiona. Number 1 surprised whisper. While with Belle and Cecilia they continued walking but in silence, and Cecilia did not know what to say to start a conversation, but then she saw how Belle arrived and stopped in front of the fertility bar. She did not understand why he stopped, but Belle spoke. Belle. Well, what do you say? Cecilia. Hey. What? She said confused. Belle. I was saying, what do you think of this place to celebrate your level promotion? Cecilia. Sounds good to me, she said, and then thought, I should ask you that. Belle and Cecilia entered. The bar fell silent as they received glances from almost all the adventurers and waitresses in the place, and this was because of Belle's red armor and Cecilia's blue armor, but the one that drew the most attention was Belle because of the blindfold that covered his eyes, also making some adventurers whisper things. Why does he have a blindfold on? Is Rabbitfoot blind? What happened to him? And those kinds of whispers, but Belle and Cecilia did not take it into account and sat at one of the tables on the left when they were eating, but someone unexpected for Belle arrived. Bell Cranel. Belle. What does Hephaestus want? Hephaestus. I come to give you something that belongs to you. Chapter 10. The invitation. Belle. What does Hephaestus want? He said seriously. Hephaestus. I come to give you something that belongs to you, something my daughter took from you. He said to approach Belle and leave him his old black knife. Belle only touched the knife for a moment and then pushed it a little away from him. Belle. No thanks, I don't need it, he said to continue eating. Hephaestus. But it's yours, I made this knife for you. Belle. But I don't need it, he said seriously, so take your garbage gun and let us eat in peace. Hephaestus. But she was interrupted by Belle. Belle. I said let us eat in peace, he said, already somewhat annoyed. Hephaestus just stayed silent and took the knife. Hephaestus. It's okay, sorry for bothering you, he said, bowing and leaving. After Belle and Cecilia left the bar they headed to the Maich family headquarters. Outside the headquarters Belle said goodbye. Belle. Okay Cecilia, I'm going. I'll wait for you in front of the dungeon and congratulations on your level up. He said as he turned around to leave. Cecilia only thanked and also said goodbye to enter the mansion. Once inside she greeted her god. Cecilia. Hello Maich-sama, I've arrived, she said happily. Maich. Hello Cecilia, welcome, he said, returning the greeting. The god Maich had a letter in his hand and was looking at it, and Cecilia out of curiosity asked. Cecilia. And that letter Maich-sama, I asked curiously. Maich. Apparently it's an invitation to a party, he said while watching him. As Maich opened the letter he noticed that the invitation was from the Freya family. Maich. It's an invitation to a Freya family party, he said thoughtfully. Maich had started to think and worry, and this was noticed by Cecilia. Cecilia. Something's wrong, Maich-sama. I asked a little worried. Maich. No, of course not, Cecilia is fine, don't worry, he said, returning to his happy and calm tone. Cecilia. Are you sure? I noticed you were worried a moment ago. She said doubtfully. Maich. No, I'm fine Cecilia, you have nothing to worry about. Cecilia just stood there thinking and looking at her god doubtfully. Cecilia. Well, if you say so, have a good night Maich-sama, she said to go to her room. Maich. Likewise, Cecilia said and then looked at the invitation. Maich. You are not that kind of goddess who invites out of kindness, he thought seriously, what is it that you really want, Freya? Moments before at the Tower of Babel. The goddess Freya could be seen naively looking at the crystal ball, and in it Belle appeared saving Lefia. Freya. Because Bunny, because you're saving that damn bitch, she thought confused. Freya just looked at the scene very confused, but then she started to smile. Freya. I see, whispered to think, now that I see it well, your soul is getting even bigger. Freya kept looking at that scene, but she was starting to get excited. Freya. I can't stand it anymore, I must have it, thought with a lascivious look. Freya talks to Otter. Freya. Otter said, getting his attention. Otter. Yes, Freya-sama said stoically. Freya. How long has it been since we had a party? She said without taking her gaze off the crystal ball. Otter. Started to think and then said a long time Freya-sama. Freya. Good because I want to have a party tomorrow night and all the gods of Orario are invited and also 2 of their children are guests, she said relaxed. Otter. Yes, Freya-sama said to withdraw. When Otter left his goddess, she approached him and took the crystal ball. Freya. Soon bunny you will be in my hands and you will be only mine, said to kiss the crystal ball. But Belle in the present. Belle was walking towards the hotel, but when he felt the presence of someone following him he went to an alley and when he entered he stopped. Belle. I can help you with something he said seriously without turning around. Wow, after looking for you for so long, I finally found you number 1, said a man who was apparently carrying something wrapped. Belle just turned seriously towards the man. Belle. Who are you? He said seriously. Okay, let me introduce myself, I'm Jin Yong he said taking off his hat and what he was carrying I come from the western lands of a craft village. Then what was wrapped unwrapped itself showing a gigantic crossbow and a metal box on top of the tip. Jin. And I'm here to take off your number 1 blindfold he said as he raised a crossbow and aimed at Belle. Belle just moved his hands to grab his katana and stood on guard ready to fight. Jin. Die. Shouted to start firing his crossbow. When the man started shooting his crossbow, a good number of arrows came out of it in the direction of Belle. Belle just concentrated and as if his brain clicked, he started repelling all the arrows that the man shot at him, then the man ran out of arrows in the box. Jin. Damn it he said while removing the empty box from the crossbow. Belle took advantage of this and started running towards the man. Jin. Ha stupid boy said pointing at Belle and shooting him but what? Belle jumped avoiding the arrows towards the left wall and using this as a base to then jump to the right and then to the left again, the man had trouble aiming at Belle. Jin. Stay still damn it angry scream. The man was missing all his shots, by the time he realized he was out of arrows, he saw how Belle jumped in his direction and he pulled out a hidden sword giving a horizontal cut. But Belle had jumped on top of the man. Jin. But what he said surprised and angry. Falling a few meters behind him, when the man turned back, Belle had jumped towards the man and in a quick movement, made a horizontal cut and falling again far from the man only fell to the ground with a cut on his neck. After the duel Belle put away his katana and started walking and left the alley in the direction of the hotel. The next day. Belle was in front of the dungeon waiting for Cecilia, while he was waiting for her he began to hear murmurs. 1. Hey, did you hear the news? 2. What news? He said confused. 3. The murders. 2. What murders? He said scared. 1. It is said that the body of a dead woman was found within the walls of Orario. 2. Really said surprised. 3. If not only that, also some of Soma's family. 2. Wow and who is the killer? 1. It's unknown, but the union began searching for the culprit and while Belle was listening to them, someone called him. Cecilia. Belle. Screams in the distance. Belle just turned in the direction of where he was called. Cecilia. I hope I didn't keep you waiting she said, a little tired from running. Belle. Don't worry, it just arrived he said simply. Cecilia and Belle entered the dungeon, but every time they passed by some adventurers, they looked at Belle with surprise and naivety, since a blind person should not be in the dungeon, and they thought he was crazy or had suicidal thoughts. Belle felt how they looked at him, but he did not take them important and continued on his way. They had reached the 10th floor, after hours of killing orcs they began to eat and talk. Cecilia. Well Belle wanted to ask you something she said nervously. Belle. What is it said curiously. Cecilia. I wanted to ask you as if you wanted to go with me to a family party she said quite nervously. Belle just stood there thinking and then said. Belle. Why do you ask? He said confused. Cecilia. Well my Sama received an invitation to a family party and could bring 2 of his children. Belle. But I'm not one of his children. Cecilia. You didn't let me finish she said a little angry also to a guest and for that reason I ask you, would you like to go with me to the party? Belle just stood there thinking and then said. Belle. And what about Naza he said curiously. Cecilia. Well she won't be able to go because she'll stay to take care of the mansion and protect the family's novice adventurers. Belle. I don't know, I have things to do and. But he was interrupted by Cecilia. Cecilia. Please Belle, I don't want to go alone, besides it's my way of paying you for helping me she said almost pleading. Belle just thought things over for a moment and then agreed. Belle. It's okay. Cecilia. Yes. Screams of joy. After they finished eating and Cecilia finished collecting the crystals from the monsters, they prepared to leave, but unfortunately for Belle, he heard the voices of some people who called themselves his friends. Welf. Belle. Lily. Belle Sama. Makoto. Belle Dono. Belle just ignored them to continue on his way, but Cecilia out of curiosity asked. Cecilia. Belle, do you know them? I asked curiously. Belle. No, just ignore them, he said seriously as he continued on his way. But what Belle didn't expect was that Makoto would get in his way. Makoto. Belle Dono said surprised. Belle. What do you want? Makoto said seriously. Makoto. Belle Dono, you who are here shouldn't be in the dungeon in your current state, she said worried. Belle. That's none of your business, Makoto. Now if you allow me, I have more important things to do, he said to continue on his way, but Makoto would get in his way again. Makoto. No, of course not, you shouldn't be here, she said to approach Belle for your safety, I will get you out of here, Belle Dono. He said trying to grab Belle's arm, but he just moved away from Makoto and said. Belle. What do you care about my safety? He said seriously. When Makoto was thinking of answering, Welf spoke. Welf. Because we are your friends, Belle, for that reason we care about your safety, he said worriedly. Belle. Friends, hey, hahaha, he said to start laughing. Belle had started to laugh, and the others looked at him confused, then Belle stopped laughing. Belle. Hahaha, then stopped laughing to talk, you are not my friends. Lily. What is Belle Sama talking about? She said confused, of course we are. Belle. No, he said seriously, if they had been my friends they would have believed me or helped me, but all they did was betray me. This made the three of them lower their heads, but then Makoto spoke. Makoto. We know Belle Dono, and we know how you feel. But she was interrupted by Belle. Belle. How do you know how I feel, Makoto, he said seriously, did your friends abandon you, have half of your friends given you the beating of your life, or have you lost your sight like me? This only made Makoto shut up and lower her head. Belle just came closer to stand in front of Makoto. Belle. Tell me, has anything I told you happened to you? He said seriously. Makoto. And no, she said with a brittle voice. Belle. Then you don't know what it feels like to be betrayed, he said to step aside and continue on his way without anyone getting in the way. Let's go, Cecilia. Cecilia went after Belle. After that meeting, Belle and Cecilia left the dungeon to go to the guild to change the stones. But as almost always, there was an elf who bothered Belle, telling him that he should not go to the dungeon because of his blindness, but Belle just ignored her. Even the god Uranus tried to persuade Belle, but he did not care what they told him. Afterwards they both went out and headed to the Maich family mansion, where the god could be seen waiting at the entrance of the mansion. Maich. Where will they be, he thought worriedly. Cecilia. Maich-sama. Screams in the distance. Maich. Hey. Cecilia said, looking at her daughter as she walked towards him with Belle at her side. When Maich saw Belle, he noticed that he still had the blindfold on his eyes, implying that they were not healed. This saddened the god a little since he wanted to help his friend. Cecilia. Hello, Maich-sama, cheerful greeting. Belle. Hello, Maich-sama said, bowing. Maich. Cecilia. Belle, it's great that you arrived, he said happily. Cecilia. What's up, Maich-sama, I asked curiously. Maich just shook his head and said. Maich. Nothing, Cecilia said relaxed, I just didn't want us to arrive late to the party. Cecilia. I really forgot, she said embarrassed, I have to find something to wear. He said to enter the mansion and leave Belle and the god Maich alone. When he left, Maich looked at Belle and said. Maich. And you, Belle, aren't you going to change? I asked confused since Belle hadn't moved or spoken. Belle. I don't have anything formal to wear to the party, he said carelessly. Maich. Seriously, he said surprised, and Belle just nodded. Well then, come into the mansion, we have many formal clothes that you can wear. After they entered and Belle dressed in a formal suit, the three of them went in a carriage to the Tower of Babel, where the party was going to be held. In the carriage, you could see a very elegant Belle, but he felt very uncomfortable. Belle was really uncomfortable, and this was noticed by Cecilia, who asked. Cecilia. Something's wrong, Belle, she said curiously. Belle. Nothing, he said adjusting his shirt collar, I'm just uncomfortable with this monkey suit. This made Cecilia laugh and say. Cecilia. He don't say that, you look good, she said happily. Belle. Really, he said doubtfully. Cecilia. Yes. Maich. Okay guys, we're here, said the god looking out the window. When they arrived, you could see some children of the Freya family who were receiving the guests and guiding the guests to the place where the party will be. When they arrived at what looked like a room almost the same as the fireplace, author. I don't know what it would look like for that reason, imagine it like Apollo's party. Cecilia saw the whole place, impressed by how elegant it was. Cecilia. Wow, said surprised. Belle. Who had never been to a party before, said curiously. Cecilia. Of course, she said embarrassed, just not someone so elegant. Cecilia saw the whole place in detail, but Belle felt the gaze of the gods and their children, and the reason was because of the blindfold that covered his eyes. Cecilia. Wow, there's even a buffet. She said, impressed. Cecilia had approached the buffet table, and Belle had followed her along with a god who followed them. Everything was calm until a goddess arrived that Belle didn't like. Hestia. Belle. Screams approaching to hug him. Belle. Sigh, God why, he thought annoyed. Hestia had hugged Belle from the side and this made him uncomfortable. Hestia. Belle said happily while hugging him. While the god Maich saw everything, he saw how uncomfortable and upset Belle was that Hestia hugged him and Maich went to help Belle. Maich. Hestia, could you stop bothering Belle, he said, separating Hestia from Belle. Belle was inwardly grateful to Maich and Hestia had become upset. Hestia. Maich, what are you doing, she said angrily. Maich. Nothing, he said a little seriously, I just prevented you from bothering Belle. Hestia didn't understand why he had interrupted her beautiful meeting, but then she misinterpreted and thought that Maich had taken her Belle from her, thinking that she had united him with her family. Hestia. Maich, traitor, how dare you take my Belle away from me, she said, trying to hit Maich but was stopped by Mikoto and Haruhime, who had accompanied her. This was seen by Cecilia and heard by Belle, who was eating from the buffet, and Belle, who was next to her. Then someone arrived who least wanted to meet him. Hello Belle. Belle. Hello, Princess of the Sword, he said seriously, turning his head slightly in the direction of the voice. Ace saw that Belle still called her by her nickname instead of her name. This saddened Ace a little, but she wouldn't give up on getting her hero back. Ace. You look good, Belle. Belle. I would say the same, unfortunately I can't since I am blind. Ace only became sadder, but she asked herself a question. Who was the one who blinded her hero? And when she wanted to ask, someone interrupted her. Ace. Belle. Cecilia. Belle, come try this, she said while eating what was on the buffet table. Belle. I'm coming, he said, being careful not to crash into something or someone. This was seen by Ace and she was really upset. Ace. That brat, she said angrily while clenching her fist. Belle approached Cecilia and began to eat with her. When Ace tried to approach Belle, all the attention was focused on the arrival of the goddess who had organized the party and she was at the top of some stairs. Freya. They are enjoying the party, she said with a smile. Everyone clapped and a few whistles were heard and Freya started to walk down the stairs and talk. Freya. It's good to see that you enjoy the party, she said with a smile, but you might be wondering why I'm organizing this party and it's to bring someone into my family. When she said that, some children of gods got nervous and some goddesses tensed up thinking that she would take one of their children away, but she only walked in one direction. Cecilia had approached the god Maich and said. Cecilia. Maich-sama, who do you think wants to unite your family, she said curiously. But Maich, knowing the answer, did not want to say it. Maich. I don't know, he said seriously. Then the goddess Freya had stopped in front of someone and that someone was Belle. With one hand she grabbed Belle's right cheek and came closer and kissed Belle's left cheek, leaving the lipstick mark, and then told him. Freya. Bell Cranel, would you like to join my family? The place was in total silence while this was seen by a surprised and angry goddess Hestia, also by Ace who was worried and tense, and Belle just said. Belle. No. This word surprised everyone at the party and Freya, who had a naive look, thought she had heard wrong and asked again. Freya. Bell Cranel, would you like to join my family, she said, this time activating her ability and making the kiss mark that Belle had on his cheek disappear. Belle just took Freya's hand away from her cheek and walked away and said. Belle. I said no, he said seriously. Let me know in the comments below if you guys want the next part. Also check out my other video that has been shown and left. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video please like and share this video. And have a fantastic day. Bye.